discussing our overview of our superintendent search with Mr. Steve Ellen.
Here, exciting opportunity for you that we haven't done before. People look at the superintendent, what are the bits and pieces in regard to? That's just the estimate. I'll take care of all of it. Answer all your questions. Answer all your questions, and you make all the decisions. That's the real important piece. There's a few rules. The main rule is this: don't sit on a question because you don't think it's right. Ask. All questions should be asked. Anything that comes to mind as we work through this process, please ask the question. Don't just no. If you don't understand or don't remember, ask the question. The other thing is, this can be it is a long process, so it's a building block process. Don't expect that you'll know everything right from the beginning, because we'll build on information, we'll build on understanding, and that's why I gave you a little notebook there and a pad of paper, because you can have that as your notes through the whole process. That'll be something you can refer back to what you were thinking, and if you've got questions along the way, you can take that home with you. If you think of a question you want to ask at the next meeting, write it down, bring it back, we'll have a discussion. And if anywhere along the line, if you, as an individual board member, open meeting law has to be accounted for, but as an individual board member, anywhere along the line that you feel you need some clarification on something, don't hesitate to call me in the office. Just give me a call, send me an email. Be happy to help you. If that occurs, and it's something that the whole board needs to know, I'll make sure the whole board needs to know the answer to a specific question, so everybody's on the same page and has the same information throughout. Okay, with that, we're going to talk a little bit about superintendent transition. So I'll ask you to look at the screen, whichever one is closest to you. We're going to talk about transition, because this is a transition. You're moving from somebody who's been here for quite a while to somebody who hasn't, and you get to make a new friend, and that new superintendent gets to become knowledgeable of where you're at and what you're looking for as a board. So with that, we're going to do a little pre-test. Here's your pre-test. I want you to look at this, please. This is a question for you. Which of the following are necessary requirements found in Arizona revised statutes related to the superintendent? I've listed 9 things there. Read those 9 things, and you decide which you think Arizona revised statutes state as something that you have to have and consider as a board in place for your superintendent to be responsible for. Anyone want to take a guess and throw a number out there?
Number 1 and 9.
Number 9, have the valid fingerprint card. That's one thing, yes.
And
How
number
about
1.
something else? Anything? Anybody else want to guess?
I'm hoping at least number 9. I'm going to go with 9.
Well, here's the answer. The only thing that the law says is the fingerprint card. None of those other things are absolute requirements. But today, you'll have to determine what the requirements are. We'll be talking about that. It's a lengthy discussion, and here's really the answer. It's 15503A1, employment as a superintendent. It says that if a governing board employs a superintendent, the governing board shall determine the qualifications of the superintendent by action taken at a public meeting. And that the governing board shall have a fingerprint clearance card that was issued pursuant to. So, real simple, you are in charge. You have to decide what that person brings to the table. Okay, with that, the transitions are Interesting. A little graphic up there, the two fellows in a boat, they're both pulling as hard as they can, but they're pulling against each other, and they're just going around in circles. And if I were to ask you specific questions today, each one of you, I would get different answers. The process that we'll go through will help us to a point where if I ask you a question, you'll eventually be in there at the same place, because we'll have a lot of discussion about a lot of different things that'll help you with becoming consistent as a board of what you're looking for. So is our board collectively and individually ready? Probably, but you don't know what it looks like yet. So we're gonna have to get through that. Who's in charge? Well, you're all in charge. If you've got an equal representation as a board. Now, what are we gonna do? Well, you started the process as you've asked ASB to help you. Which direction is best for the district? There's a lot of different directions, and I would tell you, if we asked right now, what's our direction? We could head off in that, and a week from now, it'd change, and another week, it'd change a little more. We have to be flexible. We have to look at this as, this is a good starting point. We're making decisions today that we think are in our best interest, but things could change. They could change for very valid reasons. They could change because something simple like the timeline isn't working, or the things that you're looking for in a superintendent, maybe you need to refine those a little bit more. You're not on the same page as it says there. Are we on the same page? No. Like I said, I could ask all the same questions. I get a different answer. Who's here to help us? I'm here. ASB is here. Your district administration is here. That's your primary source of assistance in this, and you should rely on all of us to help you through this. Do we know we're on the correct path? Those are things that we'll determine along the way. The path we take today may be changed, like I said, tomorrow. It all depends on different things we discover along the way. Where do we find the best person? Well, with ASB, we're going to advertise this nationwide. We have a lot of associations across the country with universities, over 60 universities and colleges across the country that your advertisement will go to. We have sister organizations in about 40 plus states. So your advertisement will go to Virginia, your advertisement will go to Oregon, your advertisement will go to Texas and Tennessee and across the country. Also, all the universities in the state, plus all the other alphabets, like the Arizona School Administrators, like ASBO and such. So they'll all have that. Plus, we'll go to the state employment network, and it'll be advertised there also. So that's where we're going to find the right person. We're going to do a very large canvassing and throw the net wide so that we try to attract as many people as we can. Okay, and then when do we make the final decision? When you're ready. We will establish a basic timeline today, but that timeline has to be fluid and has to be able to be changed when necessary, because we don't want to make a decision based on the fact that the clock says it's 12 o'clock and we said we make a decision at 12 o'clock. If we're not ready at 12 o'clock, we'll postpone the decision till you're ready. And only you as a board of 5 can determine when you're ready. What should the timeline be? We'll talk about it today, but generally speaking, we want to have at least 3 weekends built into a calendar so a person can have plenty of time to fill out all the application material and get it in. Why are weekends important? Because these people work, and you know what happens. You get wrapped up in your work, you get wrapped up in family and kids and everything else, and soccer games. You don't have time in the evening. So weekends are important for people. So we'll talk about timeline a little while. Why is it a formal process? Well, there's a little thing that is related to fair hiring practices. You're an equal opportunity employer. You want to be fair and equitable with this. Plus there's law, like I showed you, the one with what you have to do to define what you want that we have to follow. So it's a formal process for that. It's also a formal process that we need to keep it organized, and we need to keep it moving forward in a fashion that is appropriate for you. And what if we make a mistake? We're liable to. We correct it, we change it, we move on. So those are some of the basic questions. And again, right now you're not pulling together yet. As a board you are, but in this process, there's things we need to work on that'll help us pull in the same direction, so we won't be going around in circles. Okay, so what's the scope and sequence of this? Well, we're gonna be talking more about this when we get into some paperwork. But basically, we need to determine roles and responsibilities, timeline, and components, the position profile, salary. Benefits, I put up there, but I'm gonna tell you, benefits need to be worked out with your attorney when you do a contract with the person that you decide you want as your next superintendent. But that's a part of the process. Advertising and recruiting, we're gonna talk about advertising a little bit today and recruiting also. And then screening. Once we have our application process completed and given, got a lot of applicants in, then we have to sit down as a group and we have to screen them. At that point, I'll bring to you an overview, and I'll bring to every candidate that applied, and I'll bring to you their complete file. We will go over that, each one, and we'll spend a lot of time. Some of those meetings with boards last as long as 8 hours, because if you have a stack of 20 people and you want to look at all 20 and read everything, it's time consuming. Now, I said 8 hours because that's as long as I've ever taken with one of these. Most of the time, screening takes 4 hours or so, but it depends on how many applicants you have and how thorough you want to look at things. So that's applicant screening, and that's not until we'll advertise the position for at least 3 weekends, 3 to 4 weeks total. At least 7 days after that, we'll have a screening meeting, because I have to get prepared and go through all of the applicants and be ready for you. After that, there's an interview preparation process, and I will lead you through how those can be done. I'll give you some examples of what can be done. Generally speaking, we recommend at least 2 interviews. There is some preparation for that amounts to how do you want to do the interview? What do you want to cover in the interview? What are the questions going to be in the interview? Just a number of things that you have to discuss. And then community forums. We have to talk about what you want in terms of community forums. We'll touch upon that today, but we won't really get into that until the time we do the screening. But I'll give you some ideas for thinking purposes, and when we get together for screening, then we'll make a decision what the forums look like. And decision-making is all yours. Contract negotiation is between you, your attorney, and then an onboarding. One of the things ASBA has is we have onboarding materials. Now, what does that amount to? You have to introduce this new person to your community, and that's an important piece. So we have materials for you that you can use and work with your communication people to get the message out about the new person and what the new person brings to the table. Also, you have an opportunity in our contract with you to have training, a 1 3-hour training with one of our trainers to come over and meet with you and the new superintendent to talk about things like roles, responsibilities, communications, expectations, and those types of things that allow you and the new superintendent to get off on the right foot to begin with. Now, that is built into our agreement with you as 1 3-hour training. You can have more after that if you so choose. Okay, next, here you go. Whoop. Some of the more precise roles and responsibilities, and this is for ASBA. We'll consult you through the process. We'll work with a get a timeline for you. We'll advertise. We'll conduct an e-survey, a community e-survey if you'd like us to. We'll complete a profile for screening of the interviews. We'll compile online applications. We'll answer all the questions from the community. That's one of the things and the media, and that's one of the things that's important. One voice is better if we're getting questions in. So I would ask that you refer any questions in the district, refer any questions to me, because it's just one voice and everybody gets a consistent answer. I'm sorry? Oh, I think I heard.
You want to repeat what you just said?
Oh, repeat what I said?
I think about the questions part.
Yeah, please. referral wise, if media has a question or community has a question, it's best to have one voice answering that, coming directly to me.
What about prospective clients, prospective candidates? What if they have questions?
Huge echo. I've got a hearing aid here.
Oh.
Giving me a huge echo. Sorry. Oh, for you directly, you need not to, you don't want to back yourself into a corner. So be very cautious not to commit to something that is what you think might happen. The best thing for you to say is, you know, the board's working on this, the board has assistance from ASBA, we're going to find the absolute best candidate we can, and we're going to keep you informed. If they try to get something specific for you, which sometimes happens, you might get a candidate or a community member come to you and say, now look, you can tell me, who is it you're really looking for? What person is it who is it? Is there somebody, you get pushed like that once in a while. Don't fall into the trap of that. So be cordial, be nice, be specific as you can, but don't go into a point where you've painted yourself in a corner and promised something that you can't promise. You know. Yes, they can call me, they can, all my contact information is on our website. They can send me an email. And then I will answer specifically, and I'll keep it specific. So I get the same question from half a dozen people, they get the same answer. That's important that we don't have multiple answers out there. Now, please don't think that that doesn't mean you can't, be cordial and talk to people about this. You certainly can. But like I said, keep it to, the board's trying to make the best decision we possibly can. Comments like that, and we'll keep you posted. Okay, so we'll do all the scheduling. There's legal aspects of scheduling. We have to give written notice to anybody that applies. We have to give written notice to anybody who is asked to be somebody you're going to interview. We'll take care of that. We'll conduct the community meetings for you. We'll do all the formal background checks. We do a 7-year criminal background check on every person. We also will do reference checking for you. We'll facilitate your interviews. We'll work with you and be part of that. So that it flows well. There are certain things you can ask, or certain things you can't ask in an interview. We need to keep things focused and on time. So I'll help with that. We'll provide you with all the documents after the fact. And then we give you the post-hour 3-hour training. We'll respond to media, and protecting confidentiality is important. You have to remember, you're working with the lives of people. These folks are looking for a new opportunity, but they already have a job somewhere. And, we don't release names until we get to a certain point. The Attorney General helped define that a few years ago, several years ago, actually, that we don't release names until we get to finalists. And that's important because somebody who may apply, they may be hoping they get an application or an opportunity to have an interview. But until they do, they really don't want everybody in the world to know about it. So the confidentiality is important. Okay, with that. Okay, roles and responsibilities of the district. Well, you need to provide me with every bit of information you possibly can. You're all here today. You need to be present for all board meetings. Once in a while, something gets in the way, but it's important that everybody, so you have the same information and can stay abreast of what we're doing, needs to be at all board meetings. You need to also protect confidentiality. As you know, when you go into executive session, you are read a statement that says everything in executive session stays in the executive session. You need to honor that throughout this process. Provide ASB with additional questions. I put 3 up there, it could be 1. I'll be asking you that later this morning. The application process is very thorough, but districts have specific things that they're working on that they may want to, where the board may want to ask a specific question related just strictly to the district. I'll give you an example. I was working with a district in southern Arizona, a small district that was surrounded by big districts. Well, those big districts had more resources, more sports programs, more academic programs, more clubs. And what was happening to the high school students? They were doing open enrollment to the other districts because they could be part of a bigger band or a bigger football program or a bigger chorus or more clubs and such. They had lost a third of their students to two other districts that surrounded them. One of the questions that they put in their application was that this is happening. What would you do as a superintendent to resolve this? Please submit an action plan. They had to submit an action plan, and then later in the interview, they had to give a presentation on that. So as we work through this today, think a little bit about, is there a burning question that you have that you want to put in the application, or up to 3? And then you'll tell me, I'll write it and I'll put it in the application. You'll work, you'll decide on the community involvement. And I mentioned the forum, but there's also, as I mentioned, the e-survey. There's leadership groups. There's any number of things that we can talk about, and we'll formulate into this search. You'll work directly with the board's attorney for all negotiations, however, with the contract. We will talk about a salary range today, but the actual salary that you offer, this person will be worked out with your attorney based on the salary range. You'll make all the decisions regarding the final candidate. You'll secure all the normal things that you have to with I-19, and also, as it says there on the last item, adhere to all conditions of the agency handbook related to open meeting law. And I know you've gone through that training and had that information presented to you many times on open meeting law. So those are your basic responsibilities as a district and a board. With that, do you have any questions? And I like your graphic. I stole that from you. Phoenix 150. I borrowed that.
Very fitting, Mr. Allen. Go into the decision-making part as far as, you know, that we're not gonna make bigger decisions right now, and we load up. Makes whatever we decide here, we'll have a small little time to make it over things. We'll go up on Thursday, since our agenda changed.
Through the agenda, as we work for the agenda. And it goes back to the timing. We start off with a timeline, you may adjust based upon any number of things in terms of making sure they're transparent, making sure everybody's getting the right information and consistent information. That's just an important piece of it. So there'll be time, and if I start moving too fast, you tell me. We'll slow down. It's kind of like going to the dentist. You know, sometimes the dentist carries a little pain and you have to say, well, that hurts. Tell me if it starts to hurt. Okay.
Our agenda wasn't the same agenda that Mr. Highland had presented, where we could have the decisions made so that we could post people out sooner than later, I guess. So I was hoping just to get that part out in the meeting, so you guys are all aware, because we're all anxious to get this post out, but we're not able to right away, so we're gonna do that at our meeting on Thursday. So just a heads up. So then like with more full force right now, but we did have a little miscommunication, so we're gonna meet today and then add maybe one line item to the agenda that we talked about yesterday to be able to move forward on Thursday. Is that right?
It is. What it amounted to is there was a little disconnect between your district's attorney and what I had written as an agenda. The agenda that was published wasn't what I had provided. This was provided, or the attorney came back with an agenda that is a agenda for a study session, and you don't make decisions in a study session. And if you'll notice on your agenda, every item is listed as discussion. I had written it so that it was a regular or a special board meeting and you could have made decisions today. So there'll be no final decisions today. So what we will do is you will give me direction and I will hear what you say. I will then write things up and have them to the district on Monday. That'll be going to your, in your packet for Thursday's meeting. So you'll be able to look at those things in your packet and actually make decisions, final decisions next Thursday. Now, I'm not available Thursday. I didn't know this was going to occur until I saw the agenda today. But I'll try to have somebody here to represent ASBA for that in case there's any basic questions that come up. But it'll be pretty clear, and I'm going to pass out some things here in a little while to help you with that process. So a little bit of because that's why the timeline has to be variable, because little things like that happen. It's not going to hurt the search. I was hoping we'd have your position posted Wednesday. Well, now, since we can't make decisions today, since the decisions will be made Thursday, then my goal is to have the position posted Friday. At the earliest, if it goes into Monday, it goes into Monday, but that depends on what you decide next week at your Thursday meeting. Okay? Madam President, if there are no other questions, we can move item 4, which talks about the agreement.
I don't have any questions if anyone else. I think we're good to move forward. Thank you.
You received the agreement in the packet that you have electronically, but I'm going to hand you a paper copy because sometimes it's easier to look at this, and also you can write on it, and then you can keep it in your packet. So, you want help with that? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carmen. Appreciate that. As noted, this is stamped a draft, and that draft will come out, and everything will be filled in as soon as you make a decision on Thursday that it's what you want. The first few pages are what we call boilerplate. That's all the legal language. Okay. I'll fill it in, the agreement date, commencement. As you can see down item 2, I'll put that in as Thursday with the intent that that's the day you do agree. It'll say June 30th, 2022 is the ending date. We should end far before that, but that just closes out the fiscal year. There's a lot of legal language in there. I'm not going to read everything to you, but it has to do with insurance and all of that. But one of the most important things in here is this. Once you've agreed to it, it locks you in until you decide you want out. And there's a condition in here that says with 5 days written notice, you can say, we're going to go a different direction. We liked what ASBA said initially, we like their plan, but we don't like what's going on now. So if I don't make you happy, or if ASBA doesn't make you happy, you can say, thank you, we're going a different direction. Now that has never happened to us, but there's always a first. And I don't expect, it's my job to keep you happy, and your job to tell me if I'm not. So I want you to understand, by agreeing to this, the language in this boilerplate gives you the opportunity to say, we need to go somewhere else. We need to take a different direction. Okay? And when you see this language document in your board packet next week, the agenda item will allow you to approve the document, the form, and also give authority to your board president to sign the document on behalf of the board. That's how we word it. If for some reason you don't want the board president to sign it, you want someone else on the board to sign it, that's fine too, but I'll write it at least that way initially. I'm not going to go over any more of the boilerplate language. If you want to send that to your attorney to look at, that's fine. But I would say that all the attorneys that we've worked with in the past have already reviewed it, and we've not gotten anything back that was a question or a concern. Now, the things that drive what you and I do, though, start with Exhibit A. So if you go back to Exhibit A a couple of pages, now we're going to spend a little more time. I already read these things to you to a degree in the introduction, but I wanted to show you more specifically what it says in the agreement. This is our scope of work. And Exhibit A, duties of ASB, here's what we have to do. To make sure that we run this effectively, these 18 things are the things that we will do throughout this search to ensure that we give you the best product you can have. What I'd like you to do is just look at those and see if there's any one of those that you want any clarification on of how we might do something or how it's going to work in practice, not just on paper. But take a quick look and see if there's something there that is a question for you.
I have a question on, in practice, what does it look like? What does it look like to facilitate the meeting with the board? Or does that mean that you're just present and we're the ones asking the questions? Or what is your role during the interviews?
I am terribly sorry for whatever reason. I'm getting such an echo.
What's your role in the interviews?
What's my role? Oh, that's a good one. My role in the interview is, first off, I'll set it all up. I'll have the questions for you. I will bring you packets that for every candidate that has all the questions in it and give you a note sheet. So you'll be able to take notes on each candidate. After that, I will, I'll talk to the candidate ahead of time. Let's say they're scheduled for 9 o'clock. I'll meet with them about 8:15. I'll walk through the interview with them. I won't talk to them about the questions, but I'll walk through the interview with them. They'll come in, they'll introduce themselves, and then you'll start. At that point, my role is simply to keep it on time. If it's starting a little long, I'll ask the candidate to move along a little quicker. Or if it's the board that's taking additional time, we want to push it to all the questions they ask. When we look at the questions, we have a timeline that allows for all questions to be asked. We don't want to shortchange ourselves. And if a question is asked that's inappropriate, I would have to, step in. Inappropriate question. You cannot ask things like, what church you go to? Who'd you vote for? What's your sexual preference? Can't answer those types of questions. And before the interview, I will provide you, in fact, at the screening, I will provide you with a full list of 10 questions. But once in a while, it happens. In an interview about 5 years ago, we got kind of at the end of the process with one person and one board member just blurted out. So what church did you say you went to? Well, I had to stop. I said, time out. And I said, what? Another instance I had about 7 years ago, where a board member right in the middle said something about, talk to us about your marital status. It's things you just can't go to. So that's my role. And then I help take them outside when we're done. I'll take them out and we'll talk a little bit more about the interview. I'll ask them how they felt about the interview. I'll ask them if they're still interested. But sometimes, I'm going to interview once in a while, somebody will say, well, I'm just not sure. Now that I'm here, I'm just not sure. So that's my role. And on the other hand, I would tell you, I've had a couple boards say, we want to handle all that. And by law, in executive session, you can have in your executive session whoever you feel will be helpful to aid in the process. So if you choose as a board not to have me do those things, that's fine too. Because that's how I help facilitate, or I just meet and greet and send them in. Usually boards will say, well, I've only had to knock the end a couple of times, so probably twice out of the last 100 of these that I've done, I haven't sat in, and they just said, we just want to do it on our own. That's fine, that's your choice. You're welcome. And I'm sorry about not, it's getting such an echo today in this
It's a
room.
whole brand new setup, they told us, so
Thank you.
we're all patient through it.
So with that, then there's the duties of the district, and this is somewhat just like what we read on the,
I'm sorry, I have a question.
oh, I'm sorry.
So on number 12, it says conducting community meeting. Does that mean only one?
Depends on what we decide. It could be more, it could be multiple. Yeah, could be multiple, and there's different types. Generally, we recommend a full community forum, which would be a big event in the evening. It starts at 6 o'clock or something like that. You invite the whole community. I've done these for as many as over 500 people that have come. And I've done them with as few as 50 people that have been there. It all depends on your community. I think you would have a good turnout.
And does that include translation services?
We don't have translation services. The district would have to provide that. So and at that meeting, what we recommend doing in the forum is when people come through the door, they have a chance to fill out a question card. And then they turn those in, and then I facilitate the questions. We do that generally because an open mic sometimes leads to a problem. So submit your question, because sometimes questions cannot be asked by the community either. So I ask the questions, we get through as many as we can. Generally, that takes about an hour to an hour and 20 minutes or so. I do recommend a little reception afterwards, cookies, punch, that sort of thing. The COVID has kind of restricted that recently because, getting people together, but I think that's a question for the board and your community at this point. And then they get to kind of roll around and talk to these folks. So, it's a little harder when there's 500, but if I'm a candidate, I'm mingling with the group and they're asking me questions and you're there and the community is asking you questions too. You're not there as a board on that, you're there as an individual. But, and an observer, because it's important for you to see what they do, how they handle it. So I'll give you an example of how important it is in terms of the mingling after the fact. I was doing one of these community meetings in a small community in northern Arizona, the ranching community. And one of the questions that the community asked, there were 5 actual applicants or 5 actual finalists, was, what do you do in your spare time? And one of the gentlemen said, well, I'm involved in FFA, and we are involved in, we've got sheep, and we got some cattle, and we've got horses, and we really enjoy our outdoor time. Well, this is a ranching community. After the formal part of the meeting, during the kind of the social time, where do you think the kids went in terms of the person to talk to? They went right to that person. Why? Because they're involved in FFA and they're involved with the horses. It's a ranching community. And the board got to see that. The board said, well, wait a minute. Everybody's going to talk to him. They're talking to the others, but that's where the action is, and that's where the kids went. They took that into consideration. You'll see the same thing. Also, then there's a ticket out the door. So when they leave, they can fill out a comment card, ticket out the door. It then comes back to you. I'll take it, I'll get it. When we meet to discuss what you saw, you'll have those. And you get some interesting insight, anything from, well, let's say a parent is highly involved in special needs programs. And maybe one of the candidates has experience in special needs. Often in that case, you'll see a comment card that comes back about talking about what that person said related to special needs and why you need to give that person consideration. Sometimes it just comes back and the person says, hey, thanks for the opportunity, or hey, I like the one with the red shirt. But you get some depth there too, because you will get people who focus on, maybe it's gifted programs, maybe it has to do with bilingual programs, maybe it has to do with special needs programs. You'll get those parents who are focused on that and want you to have their message that they like these two candidates, particularly because they've got background in these areas. Now, that's input. You make the decisions. They give you input, but it's kind of like the e-survey. We put out if you want us to, we'll put out an electronic survey that asks 11 different questions about the superintendent position, things about leadership, things about management, things about experience in all areas, things about support service areas. And it also gives them a chance to make comments there. And they also, the last two questions, question 10 is, what do you think is good in the district? What's happening that's, a good thing? And then the last question, 11, is what are the challenges in the district? And they will write to those things. In a district your size, I would expect to get 300 or 400 of those back.
Is that survey just to the community or also staff?
That's full stakeholder involvement.
That's not an answer.
Everybody should have an opportunity. And the way, what we say is, we'll post it on our website. You'll have it posted on your website. They'll go from your website to our posting. But we also say that there's people out there that don't have computers. So we also say each school should be set up so a person can come in and fill it out in the office somewhere. And it is in English and it's in Spanish. And they should also be the same opportunity here is our recommendation. District has to decide, but have a computer or two set aside where somebody can come here and have somebody help them through it if they're not used to computers, so you get as much input as you can. We believe that's an important part.
So the survey will be sent to staff.
Oh, yeah, they have staff. When I say stakeholders, talking kids, staff, students, and staff, teachers, bus drivers, everybody, all the community, anybody who has a stake in the community should have an opportunity to fill this form out. And then at the screening meeting, we'll review it. Reviews are interesting because I'll give you an example. In one district, we had, 6,500 responses. We had a document that was about 250 pages long in the report. So it gets pretty comprehensive. Now, one of the caveats you need to understand with that, it's an open opportunity for also somebody to take a shot at you. So sometimes comments come back that are not complimentary. And you have to understand that you have to accept that. It could be as a board or it could be as a district that it's not complimentary. One thing I will not do though is I will not tolerate inappropriate language or an attack. That language will be erased from the survey. If somebody uses foul language, I will take that out. You won't see it. I'll tell you it happened. I'll keep a copy of the complete survey in my office, but I'll give you the copy where that's been redacted because you don't have to be barraged by inappropriate language. Does it always happen? No. Does it happen once in a while? It can. And also, this is not an opportunity to make an attack on a person. So if somebody had an experience that they don't think was positive and wants to attack a specific person and writes about it in there, that'll come out too.
Those responses that he will sort through it and like the themes to us, where we.
I will provide you with the full report, but I will come back with an oral report where I say, here are the top 5 themes that I saw. Here, you may see something different, but I'll read through it and I'll say, okay, communication. The need for greater communication is a theme. The need for more emphasis on bilingual education is a theme. Or gifted programs or parent involvement, or academic achievement and academic enhancements. I'll come back with those themes. I'll give you the overview, but you'll have the whole document to read yourself. And then I suggest that document is published on your website for transparency, so all of your community can see what the response was. And my report back to you will be done in an open meeting. So people get to hear it, they'll get to see it, they'll get to be part of it, they'll get to listen. And they can see it on the website if you choose to post it. That was a long answer to your question. I hope it was, I hit everything, but it's an interesting process.
Very much so. I've just got two things. Can you hear me or are we turned down? Okay, good, because that was, anyhow, so,
The mics are set up mostly for folks that are on Zoom that are listening in, if you want to listen in.
got it.
So, as long as you're able to hear each other well here, you don't have to speak to the mic, because it'll be captured on the Zoom meeting. So, that's really the only purpose of the mics. If you can, as long as you hear each other without using the mic, you're okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, I also was concerned about the translation part because that is a very important thing to me and to the community. So I did already confer with Mr. Quintana about making sure our procurement team finds a translation and service agency or something to have in place and be prepared. So I know they're already working on that, but the other thing is, for sure, I'm in favor of having this survey go out to all stakeholders. So when do we make that decision?
Well, we'll talk about it today and you'll make it on Thursday now.
Perfect.
We were gonna make it today, but now it's Thursday. And also, think of translation this way. I've had districts with heavy need for sign language translation. So districts that have, a heavy bilingual population generally do provide at least one or more interpreters. And also sometimes, like I say, someone to do sign language. But that's the district's responsibility to do that.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Then there's the duties of the school district. And again, I've already pretty much gone over those on my introduction, but are any of those in need of further conversation with you?
Were you able to look at the profile? Was it sufficient? The one that Ms. Jeffries provided?
I've got all kinds of goodies to pass out for you.
Awesome. Okay, great.
You're gonna make that determination. That's one of the hardest things you'll do.
Oh,
When we offer the position to a candidate, we make sure that they accept it before we publicize it, so that makes sense. If I wouldn't want to offer to them, have them say no, and then try and go offer it to someone else and have them know that they're second.
It can work both ways. If you're satisfied that, and you've had enough conversation with the person and you know this is a done deal, then you just move forward and say who it is. If you don't, there's a different way to do that that is involving your legal counsel, not me, where you have to have legal direction and talk to your attorney about how can we do this so that we're going to offer this, but we want to make sure that it's accepted before we go public. That can happen. Never happened to me, but it's happened to others, where you get right to the end and, they go, well, no. Now, one of my responsibilities to you is to have that conversation up front with the finalist. Is this the real deal for you? We're not going to put the board in an embarrassing position where if they offer it to you, you say, not so. And again, the reason I do that is I had a situation, I like to use examples for you. I was working with a board where they were real focused on a particular person. So I knew that, so I went to that person individually and I said, let's talk. And I said, are you ready to accept an offer if they bring you one? And the person said, yeah, but for $25,000 more than what they advertised. And I said, okay, thank you. Well, I presented that to the board, and guess what happened to that person? They fell off the list real quick. Because they weren't gonna accept that type of negotiation where, okay, we're offering up to 150,000, I won't do it for less than 175, so if you want me, pay me. That's not where you need to be. So I have a little discussion with these folks on the side, especially if I'm not sure, you know. I also ask them a very simple question that sometimes comes out in a board discussion, sometimes doesn't, and that is, I'm not gonna focus on you directly, but if you're the candidate, I would ask you, all right, the board's asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything the board needs to know about you today that they don't want to find out tomorrow? I'll ask questions like that. So I can ask almost anything I want. You can. I can't ask them those questions about religion and sexuality, but I can be very direct in questions like that because that's a very telling question. And I will tell you when I talk to references, if I don't know the person well, the person that's applied, and some of them I know very well because I know superintendents now. I will ask those references that same question. Okay, you told me good things. Tell me everything that, sounds good, but I don't want to know what I haven't been told now. So, is this going to be a situation where the board needs to know something now and not after the person becomes superintendent? So I ask that question. And now bring it to those folks also. So, it's called betting. I don't know why it's called that, but I have some pretty interesting questions when I have somebody I'm not sure of. Because I want you to know that and not go into something. But then if you do, you'll turn to me and say, why did that happen? My job. Now that happened. Okay, any questions on those items? Okay, let's go to Exhibit B. Now we're going to talk about timeline. And Carmen, we're going to talk about the survey at this point and a couple other things too. So, the timeline, and this is still a draft, so let's make sure we're all in the same place. So, the board approval is going to be on Thursday. So I will put 3/10/22 in there as a date. Now, the electronic communication survey. Electronic community survey. I've already explained it, but I'm going to go a little deeper into it. The first question on the survey asks, what is your association with the district? But it doesn't ask for names, or it does not identify specific people. The reason for that is we don't want people to feel like we're looking at them. We're looking at the whole picture. But it does ask, are you a community member? Are you a parent? Are you a student? Are you a staff member? And it gives them a chance to say things like, they mark off, yes, I'm a student, and yes, I'm a community member, or yes, I'm a parent, and I was a past student. So they get to say who they were. That way you get a reflection of who's put this information out and where it's coming from. Again, I will provide the district with a statement. I'll give it to your communication folks, and they can use it to get it out to the community, and they'll probably enhance it to meet your needs. It may be also interpreted into Spanish. It says, we really need you to do this. The board's looking forward to your input. So they'll have that. So that's the first question. Now, every question can be responded to in terms of a list of things. Like I just mentioned, here's a list of things that you might be. But then at the end of that question, there's an open comment section that they can say anything they want. Every question is that way. Second question has to do with leadership. What characteristics do you think are important for this district in terms of leadership? And there's about 9 different things, 10 different things that they can check. We ask them to check 2, just to keep it consistent. And then there's an open line of communication after that. Sometimes we'll have, let's say we have 200 people fill it out. We could have 150 of those add extra comments So you really learn a lot about your community when you read those comments. So there's, again, there's questions on management, there's questions on support service activities, there's questions on budget and finance, and then there's the last two questions. What's the district doing well? You may learn some interesting things about your district, what they think, and also what are the challenges? Not what are the issues, we want to know what the challenges are. What do we need to do better? And again, in a district your size, I would expect, if we don't get well over 300, I'd be surprised. Responses, and I could be low on that, but it comes down to getting the word out. Your principals need to talk to their staff. Your principals need to talk to your PTOs or your parent groups, your site councils. The district needs to canvass the community, whatever normally they use with Facebook and other things. They need to get the message out so that people go to their computer, fill out the form, and give it back to and send it in, or they come here or the schools and get help doing it. And that's an important piece of this also. We don't want to restrict people who don't have a computer. So that's the survey. Now, I have to put a date in there, but I'm not going to put that in yet because we have to talk about when we're going to open and close this first. But we do the survey during the same time we have the position open, because I want you to see the results of the survey when we do the screening, because the results of the survey can be used to help you decide who you're going to screen. It also can help you decide later on what questions you're going to ask. You asked about the themes. If one of the themes has to do with a particular item, pick a simple one, communication with the public. If you see that as a primary theme through this whole thing, let's ask a question during the interviews about that. Another way I've used this e-survey is to, in the interviews, and this is with the board's direction, give that e-survey to the people you're interviewing. Tell them to review it. Tell them to pick out what they think the primary themes are, and for them to then create an action plan to address those themes that they can present to you during the interview. So you get to see a couple of things. One, you get to see what they picked out. Are they seeing the same things you are? Two, do they have an action plan that is representative of this district and will represent you well? And three, they're asked to present this like they're at a board meeting. So you're up front, they have a podium, they present, so you get to see their presentation skills. That's a way in an interview to do more than just sit there and ask 10 questions. 10 questions are nice, but you really don't get to see them in action. So when we talk in screening about how are we going to move forward with interviews, that's something that can be done. And that's just one example. There's other examples. But that idea about using what the community said for the people that are applying to respond to tells you what their focus is. And it tells you if you're on the same page with them. But it also tells you, like I said, when they're standing at the podium, can they transmit their message to you? Or did they not transmit their message to you? So that's another way to use that e-survey. A couple of different ways to use it. Okay. Community and district leadership meetings. Here's a question for you. It's very specific now that you need to give me some thoughts on, because I'll write this in there when I send it back to you. This is different than the community forum that I've already somewhat discussed. In a community or district leadership meeting, let's separate and talk about district leadership meetings first. Do you want your administrators to have an opportunity to say, come in this room and meet with me? I ask them delving questions and they tell me what they think about those questions. Like, what do you think as a principal? What do you think is the most important thing that this superintendent can bring to the table to help you facilitate your position as a principal in the best possible way to meet the needs of kids? And they get to talk to me about it. You can be here as an observer. You just are not a board. We just post it that way so you can hear what they say. And we would want to do that before screening also. So we could set something like that up. We could also set it up for, in high school, sometimes they include students like leadership students that are involved in student government. You don't have a high school, you don't have that structure, but sometimes in districts, giving a group of students an opportunity to talk is a valid opportunity also. How you would do that here, you'd have to tell me, because you don't have large student governments, but you may have small student government opportunities. And maybe if every school site has a student representative or student president of student council or something, that there could be an opportunity for them to come in here. Someday they could be transported over by the school or by the school over here, and we could spend 45 minutes just talking. What do you like about the district? What do you like about what's happening? What do you think your superintendent? Do you even know the superintendent? And would you like to know the superintendent better? You know, questions like that, kids can, at that age, they can respond to those. The forum provides an opportunity for all community members. Do you have a community leadership group? For instance, all of your schools, I'm sure have a site council. Would you want to invite the site council leadership? That'd be, you have 14 schools, am I right? Okay. So would you want to have every school have one of their site council members or two come in here and meet with me? And again, you can be observers where we just chat and talk for 45 minutes to an hour. You get to hear what they say. It's important for me to facilitate it, but it's more important for you to be here. Not, and I know you all couldn't each time, but at least a couple of you be in it, so you can hear what they say. So when we go into that deliberation about what are you gonna now do in screening, what questions are you gonna ask, you have that profile. That's when I talk about community meetings, those parent groups are important to your structure. Those are the types of things I'm thinking about. You may have other examples. So your turn now to talk about it. Let me listen, and I'll write down some notes and I'll have them here. And we can't make a decision, but we kind of come to a consensus in here for what you'd like to see in this area. So think about it twofold. Think about a community, think about a district, and for district, don't forget your support staff. I mentioned administrators, principals and such, but you have a large support staff also. There needs to be an opportunity for those people to have the same opportunity to speak as everyone else. So I'll put my mic down and rest my voice for a few minutes. Talk about it. What do you think you need?
I'm in support of both of those. Sounds like they'll be separated, one for the screening and then community forums afterwards, but maybe even two opportunities, like I know administration are free probably during the day, but our good soldiers that are on the ground would probably have more access at night, so I don't know what that looks like, but I would like to make it accessible for everybody.
What's the difference between those meetings though and the like open survey, I guess?
The pre-meetings are more so just to inform people of like, what does the superintendent even do? Like, what's the power of the superintendent? So it's more so like educating them on the forefront, so that way they're able to give us like really good feedback during the process. That's part of it too, but you know, my concern is always we're asking questions to people that just not may understand like what is the superintendent. So that's it's our responsibility to share that information of this is what they're in charge of. If you didn't know, and getting that feedback and just getting them comfortable. And it's also just the first touch of, hey, this is what we're doing. So I'm agreeing with doing on both ends.
And I think too, if I'm understanding it correctly, these meetings would inform the profile that we're creating, what we're looking for a superintendent. Whereas the community forum, you already have the finalists, and the community is eventually interviewing, helping us interview the potential superintendent. So we get to see how that potential
That's absolutely correct. We want to do any leadership meetings, we want to do prior to your screening. Because it's a building block process that gives you the information what people are thinking. And you're exactly correct. The forum is you've now narrowed this down to the top 3 finalists. They get to meet these 3 finalists as a big group of 300 or 400 people. They get to ask questions. You get to see how they respond. You get to see what questions are asked. Gives you an opportunity to now have that focus just on these 3 or 4 finalists. So it's changing the parameters of what you're looking for.
I really think that these are important to have, because, we are doing our job here as civic servants of the public, and we all have our different professions, but I think what is very important is we need to rely on the voice of the people who work here to really understand like what they're needing, everyone from support staff to our cabinet, because they are the ones that are working here day in and day out. So they need to know, they need to inform us of what they believe a good leader is to help them become successful. So I think one other person that you didn't mention in all of the different stakeholder groups is, I'm wondering if we could invite our Peter High School superintendent to have a conversation with you, because what I think is very important, in my opinion, is having a superintendent who works very closely and in tandem with our Justin, yes, with Dr. Gaston. So I think having Dr. Gaston's, I guess, perception of what a great leader would be in this context is very important for us as well.
Certainly. And there may be other community leaders that that you want to invite in. They can occur as an individual meeting, or that if you define 5 or 6 strong leadership people in your community, might be inclusive of the superintendent. You can invite those 5 people in, so we could have a chat about what they're seeing the needs of, and you would just need to define the 4 or 5 people, 6 people, 7 people. I'm not putting a limit on it. You'd have to define that leadership.
That's a great idea. Because, yeah, that partnership is just, it needs to grow, I think. Just attending the last couple graduations and things like that, just really making sure we close those gaps. So, and Phoenix Union is doing so much right now, so I think it's a great idea.
Only concern is that whatever meetings we are offering are as accessible as possible. School is amazing, but logistically speaking, as long as so that each school isn't going to pile more onto any of these schools that necessary, especially towards now where this is a bad time of year to be asking schools for more. They want to.
That's a good question. So those, we definitely would want them to be accessible virtually. So would those maybe take place here at the district? Would you go? What look like? Would employees and staff all be invited to one? Or
We could invite, nice thing about it, geographically you're not here. So let's say we use this room and we set up 2 or 3 different times. Maybe we could have a conversation. You never know who can drop in and talk, but we need it to be some of the structure. So if it winds up being a group of 3 people that came, so be it. If it winds up, 30 people that can't come, so be it. Or, you do all your schools release at the same time.
But it's not a huge difference in time.
Yeah. What I can do is, I can work with your communication director, Linda, and we can set up some different opportunities where people can come in and talk. I think generally it's best to come into a central location. You can give different time opportunities, because if you go to a school, I know who you're gonna see, you're gonna see people at that school. We need to see a bigger rollout and get people from older, And they will show up. They will show up. They're gonna be interested. And if we invite them.
So for today, we have to have like a tangible item, you need us to outline the specific individuals or categories of people, or do we email that to you? What would be?
I'm not sure when you say that, what do you mean?
So like, are you looking for us to tell you exactly who you want us to include these communities?
No, because you've already pretty well defined it. We're talking about in terms of, well, in the community leadership, yes, you would need to find those top people. And when I say top, just people, maybe 5, maybe 10. That would be more formal. We'd have to set a time, a date, and where we're gonna do it. And again, I'm always going back in my mind to this building because it is the school district. So you would have to, and I will include an agenda item for Thursday for you to make that decision. So think about who, as an individual, maybe each in your mind, come up with 2 people. And next week on Thursday, you talk about that one I do. But when it comes to talking about the administrators, I'll work with administration to get that set up. When it comes to talking to students, I'll work with administration to get that set up, and staff. Other staff members will set that up through your administration also. So I can put all that together with primarily with your district administration now, and I do need to know those people, and then they're going to need a formal invitation from the district. And it's best to come from the district board, a formal invitation. You're being invited to meet with the ASB representative on behalf of the board to discuss the position of superintendent and what the board needs to consider related to the position of superintendent. Now, I suggest, you're not going to be able to get to all of it. I do suggest that your IT department take every one of those that we have with everybody. Now, let's be careful about taking the students, because you've got issues, that can arise with that. So you may not want to take the one with the students, because then you've got them on the film, and you've got those special protocol not to identify students. So we might not want to take the one with students, but with the adults, I think you should take them so that you can see them, because you can't all get here. And the board, if the board wish, board could also put all of those that you take online, so anybody can go online and see what the leadership of the community say, what the administrators and the staff say. It's just, that's a decision you make. That's a decision that you can give your administration. Doesn't affect me, I'll run the meeting. That's where we're headed. But your administration needs to know from you what your expectation is. Making those meetings available so people can hear what other folks say.
That's great.
In terms of timeline, we have a district-wide community picnic on March 26th. Just thinking that would give us access to a lot of people, but I don't know if we would already be at a point where that survey should be.
I think looking at the calendar. You have on the 26th, right?
Yes. But I
I
don't,
think, go ahead.
I was just gonna know that we wouldn't necessarily be able to facilitate that type of question. Oh, not a discussion, just application survey. Like, here's, like, here's your survey card, here's the QR code of the survey, just to get more. Or, yeah, probably not.
For the survey and yes, on the 26th, again, the communications department could have some posters out, have a couple, different things so that people can, hey, you need to do this. If you haven't done it, please do this. So we can have these surveys go beyond the 26th so that they have an opportunity to publicize it even more at that. If the response, is this a good time to have one of those meetings? No, it's a picnic. That's not a good opportunity for people there and say, okay, absolutely watch your kids for a while, maybe let's talk about student. That's not going to be their focus.
Will you communicate that with marketing, that we want that survey to be a part of?
The marketing, you need to talk to your marketing department and ensure that they get done what you want with them. And that should be a part of your discussion next week. To market this e-survey, what do we as a board expect? And what are we going to direct the marketing department to do? Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be a pretty big discussion. And I apologize, I think I said this, I cannot be here on the 10th, but I'm going to get a person from my office to be here to help facilitate any questions that you might have. I just happen to have another engagement on the 10th. Okay. So I think I've got a pretty good idea of which one, this little 1-inch box is going to expand quite a bit. Okay. We're now going to look at the next important thing we're looking at, I have dates and they better, is when are we going to open this survey? We're going to have your meeting on the 10th. If you accept what I give you to look at, a lot of changes, and I can get it posted on the web. If you give me a document back, and say, well, we want several things changed, it may take a while, because what I'm going to give you in a moment is an overview of the posting document, but it doesn't look like this when it goes online. This is just a worksheet, and I have to have staff in the office formatted and get it ready. So the earliest I can have it out is the 11th. And definitely, even with changes, it could be out on the 16th. So what I can write on here is, in terms of opening, is no later than the 16th of 5 p.m. I'm going to try to beat that, but it'll be depending on which you put it there, right? I guess. Depending on how much you give me back. If you want a lot done, it's going to take me longer. You have but that's your choice. Right? You do what you like, and we do before the 16th. So I'm going to put an opening date as no later than the 16th. Right? Yeah.
That works. When do you think we'll get the working document to look at?
Monday.
On Monday. Take what we do today and then put it in so that we have time.
I just have to put it all, all these things that you tell me I have to put together. So I'm going to say 16.
Yes.
16 by 5 p.m. Now, a closing date. I want to have this over at least minimum 3 weekends. The other thing I will say is, we're gonna incorporate a lot of leadership. Meetings in it. So that's gonna take a while here. So if we wanted to say the 16th, so 1, 2, 3 meetings, likely 19th, 26th, and 2nd. That's 3 weekends. That's the minimum amount of time. That would mean closing at say 6. We're already gonna keep it open all the way till 11. 4 weeks, and say, you're gonna get time to couple of meetings. So, we're gonna close it on 11. Now, I'm gonna mention something to you that is just a fact of the matter, a matter of fact. I would like to have been able to start this search and the work we're doing today back in October, November. We're pushing the envelope, and because this didn't come to your table sooner, we're here in, February, mid-March already. We definitely want to have this done before the end of the year, so you have something pretty flat one. The caveat to that is that April 15th is kind of a magic date with contracts. Because contracts in other districts are going to be out for superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, people who are liable by April 15th. So there may be some people who have a contract that are, that the district said you have 15 days to return it. And that may be that they have that, they could have it March 1st, they could have it April 15th, kind of the deadline. Without going into other parameters for the district. Fine. So we're going to be definitely past that date. That's just a fact. Could that affect you? Yeah, it could affect you because maybe I'm sitting in another district. I'm sitting in Mesa. I'd like to apply. I'm going to apply, but I'm looking at the dates. I'm going. My district may want to. They may give me a contract on the 14th and give me 30 days or 15 days to sign it. Otherwise, it's null and void. So, am I going to sign it or am I not going to sign it? Am I going to put my bet that I get this job? It puts people in a little bit of a situation. It doesn't necessarily keep them in line, but it may be that they have other opportunities. Those other examples, because they're real. Working with another district right now, they have a top candidate. They're not finished. Another district already offered them, and they accepted it because we're in the hand. That job offer was a good offer. So they had to drop out of this search for us. That's sort of thing. The later we go, the more potential there is for that. Now, given that, I will tell you, you're a prime district. So I'm not going to tell you that's going to totally hurt you or something, but it could affect you because we're a little late in this process. It would have been nice if we had this conversation in October, November. Didn't, but we just have to understand that that's where we're at.
Possible with that being said, is it possible for us to move everything back? I know that will put a lot of pressure on everyone, but I would hate for us to get in a position where there is an ideal candidate and there is a predicament where they're just not going to move forward because it's been a late game. So I know that ideally, we'll be finished by March 16th, but what would be the early, or I guess the earlier date that you can get this done if we really work overtime to get your feedback? Would that be March 11th?
I think we're very equal, actually.
She confused about the program. The start process, because it, you said that you're going to get us something by the 16th, right? Just that we wouldn't have it post any later than the 16th. He's going to get it to us on Monday. I see. So we get it posted prior.
It depends on what you're saying.
Okay. Depending on
If there's
our
a lot of
feedback.
changes, then it could take staff on my end to make the changes, to format and get it ready to go.
Okay, I thought you were saying though that potential candidates would want a little offer by April 15th. I mean, there's no way that we would be able to review the applications, even if we move it up a week and do interviews and make an offer by April 15th.
I don't believe there's anything you can really do about it today. It's just an understanding. Taking it another week or backing it off a week isn't gonna help you at this stage. Like I said, it's just the fact of where we're at. We started in October, we would be talking, and you would have already gone through the process. But which wants to know that we're gonna, in April, start pushing the envelope with the number of reasons. People have already found a job. People are leery of going in that late, so they've already committed to their own district, they've already got a contract next year signed. It just adds a little difficult to do it for the folks that are applying. We just have to start forward because that's what we're facing. I would not back it off a week because it might help. A month would have made a difference. 6 weeks would have been better. But we're not. So I still think if we close it on the 8th, then we can have screening. Screening is the long process. Are Saturdays better for you? The screening?
I'm good with those. I'm good with Saturdays. Which is different.
Close the application on the 8th, have the screening on the 16th. So if we close the application on the 8th, then I have to go through all the files and learn about everybody, start making phone calls, start talking to people about who they are, talking to candidates, you know, if I don't move them already, that's gonna take me the better part of, you know, those days between the 8th and the 16th.
April 16th is the date you're proposing for screening.
See, I'm proposing the 16th as a Saturday or the 15th.
The 16th is, the 17th is Easter, just, it's Easter, the
Oh,
holiday.
that's not good. About the 15th then. Friday the 15th.
You're doing the applicants.
Now, it's again, minimum 4 hours. So we established the 15th. I'm sorry, to help you.
Yes, the 15th.
Yes, he was just wondering if we did have an option to close it on the 11th. He wrote that down. So he was just confirming that they were gonna close it to be able to plan for that next Saturday. So
We can do the 11th.
is that something you feel will?
But here,
You were just seeking that. Yeah.
So
it does give another weekend, and that's when you be filled out.
go with your expertise, yeah, what do you think? We close on that Friday, then meet the next Friday? What do you suggest?
Well, I like what was said about putting on the 11th because it gives another weekend. If we close on the 11th, and then we do screening on the 15th.
Works for me if that, if you
That
can
works for me.
squeeze it in,
Everybody like the Friday, everybody can get off and work on Friday.
yes.
What time of day would you like to start?
I like today at 9. so
9?
we could- So, 8,
Can't be here until after Easter week.
Every year only coming to a consensus, but you're not making a final decision.
How many hours is that?
how much do we plan for, how many hours?
Minimum 4, and like I said, I've had these last 8 So my suggestion is that the administration, the district, make sure you've got snacks in the morning and lunch. If you get through it any faster than 4 hours, that'd be surprised. It's just a long process.
Does 9 work for everybody? Is
I'm
that
not gonna put 9 down, but you'll approve it next week.
So just for scheduling 9 to 1, does that sound okay to start with? Or should we? Or next year?
Throw an extra hour in them, just in case. And if you're faster than that, withdraw.
Is it possible to do any of the rework to speed up the process, or does it have to happen?
No, because the files won't be finished in terms of providing what we have until the 11th to us. And then I've got to go through them. Staff's got to build them then. Because it's a lengthy file. I mean, there's a lot there. You know, so they're gonna build the file. Each file will be probably, depending on the, you know, the 20 pages to 25 pages worth of material. So, I'll get it all printed, set up for you, ready to go. And have copies here. And I've got everything, make sure I know who they are. And starting. No, not until the 15th.
You bring us all of the applicants or just ones that meet the minimum qualifications? Like,
I will bring you all of the people who completed an application. Some of them will not qualify, depending on what you decide to qualify. But I will also tell you that I have an evening with C staff.
oh, that's nice.
Let's say 25 candidates. These 15, I will review each one with you. I'll say, these are the candidates that you are a staff candidate for. Experience. I think this is a B stack candidate. Why do I think we should B stack candidate? Maybe you say you have to have some candidates. You have to have it, consider it. But many people who don't have a certificate of law, well, that'll be a B stack. And I might even have a C stack. You never know what I might find out. Really concerning doing a person. I will really need that. But mostly, if I go in and fill out an application and I don't submit it, I'll have the information on it. But let's see it. Somebody will fill out an application. Not gonna bring those. You don't hold it to that. But not anybody suspicious for a while. But I will break it down. Okay, so I'm seeing the 15th. 9 o'clock is go out make a determination. Now, the next thing is first round interviews. Yes, on the 15th, decide about questions, how we're going to do it, and that afternoon, I'll have to get a message out to the people that you want to hear, and I'll have to give them a time and a date. And usually, to give them plenty of time to be ready to go for that, usually has to be a week. So we're looking at either the 22nd or the 23rd, have a week away to have the first interview. What looks good to you as a group? You want to do all, and I'm talking all day, it could be, you can do 4 candidates. You can do 5. I've got few boards to do 6. Okay, by the time you do 6, you're 10 hours. I'm not sure that that's fair to the last candidate or the first. So it could, depending on how many you choose to do, this could be the 2 You only can pick 4 or 5. We can do all those on the 22nd. If you pick 6, we can. If you pick 7, don't even try.
I just pulled up the district calendar, the district election closes on the. I don't know. I just wanted to clarify before I don't want to schedule it if it's we need here and. Well, I think your guys will pay off. I shouldn't be here, but can we use
Well, let me ask you a question.
the.
Running,
Oh,
it's Easter isn't showing on there, but that is wrong. How about the 18th? Just move to the movie. You guys do nothing for the screen? Then we, Easter behind us.
Could we maybe close it on that Friday the 8th and do it a day early on the 14th? Like, well, we have to choose one or the other, meet a week earlier or close it.
We get a week earlier, we wait to say.
That's the 19th. And then we have our retreat. Does the 14th work?
14th works for me.
Do you want to keep the same close date of the 11th, or do you want to move it to Friday?
We need to move that. We're gonna work on Thursday. Probably close it down on 7. We're gonna miss that.
I'm okay with that if you
So
guys
we're
are.
gonna now move that to the 7. We're going to then we'll have our training on the 14th. Okay, then we revert having the conflict with the insurance. So now interviews. First interview then, we still block out 22nd, 23rd.
I leave.
How about this? How about you say we do the interview on the 20th? You said the 22nd.
I leave around.
Well, we schedule the interview for the 21st. Okay. Another idea. And we block out the evening. Well, yeah, what I'm suggesting is that we set up the interviews for the 21st. Figure out all day. It'll take, if on the screening day we have more than 5 people, then we interview 2 of them on the evening of the 20th. We do 2 on the 20th, say there's 6, 2 on the 20th, we do 4 on the 21st. And then we from that point, then, from there we go to our second interview and our community meeting. Now that's the community forum. What are community forums that? We should use all that completed. And when it wants to. And their food stores, well,
I think they're open.
they need to be, because they're open. So with that, timeless meetings, timeless interviews, a week later, we could do the same thing. We could block out the evening of the 20th for community forum. And then you have the interviews on the 28th.
So there's
27, community forum, 28 interviews. So you get to see them in action with the community on the 28th, 27th. And then you get to interview them again on the 28th. And then on the 28th, have the interviews, they have an opportunity to make a decision if you're ready.
So that's more like the second interview.
That's the second. But that works for the community.
Let's see, 6. Yeah, 6:15 is our normal. But we could start at 6 if that works. That's the following day, I think.
Yeah, we're not, yeah, that one is tentative depending on how many times. So if it's more than 4, then we would opt in for the interview. So you're just asking if we do the 20th, what time would we do it?
Keep in mind, we're setting a timeline that we may need to adjust as we get there. This is what we see as right today. And then by the time we get there, it will change. So I think that's good. We close on the 7th, we screen in the 14th. On the 21st, maybe on the 20th in the evening, the community on the 27th. The community forum on the 27th. We have another final interview on the 28th. And on that day, you can either decide if you found a person, or you can say we need to have a third interview. We need to bring more people back. That's great flexibility. We don't make decisions. Flexibility. But that gives us a structure that we can now advertise, and now people understand that are applying what the commitment is. If you're not in, if you're on vacation in Aruba that week of the 20th, when the interviews are occurring, you may not want to apply. Interviews, I think it's should be in person. We were doing a lot of Zoom interviews because of, with COVID at one point. I think we're to a point at this time that you should say that it's a in-person interview for all. Okay, that's good. So the first round, I'll fill all that out. I'll fill out the finalists, community meetings, definitions. Next page. I'm going to, I'll just consider again, I think that'll be the same day as the 28th, but that's not a lot in that opportunity. That's our timeline. For now. Okay. And then the last page, item C, you don't have to worry about that, because that's already been determined for your board process. So, having present, that takes us through our timeline, our agreement. I can fill out the rest. I will ensure that the work is done on our side, so we have the survey done, the meetings. We'll have it all posted ready. That link has to go on their website. That's how people get to it. And the message has to go out, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The message has got to go out in the campus really wide, and I think, again, on Thursday when you meet, you have to set that. This is what you expect. Rightly so, are along. You gotta establish what you want out of it.
So what date do we come on that survey?
What time is the survey?
I mean, yeah, like what, as far as us making sure we are ready to say, hey, administration, look out for this date, for this. I have that, Professor. I was wondering like which, where we actually have it to start pushing. Roll call. I don't, yeah, I just wrote down that we wanted to go out and then.
Oh, I told you, come back to it.
Sure.
Well, here's where we're at with the survey. We want to have the survey done before the screening. So I want to pass the 26th because that was the. So we will open the. We'll open the process. I read all that in the outline. President here for fine. The paper we're going on.
That's the goal.
So there is. Okay, we're gonna open the search by the 16th. We will also open the survey by the 16th.
Okay, sorry.
We're gonna close the search on the 7th. I will also have the survey closed on the 7th. I'll have Matt, I'll report to you. I'll have a report to you by the 8th. Full report. We'll have it, we'll email it to you on the 8th. And have all the charts and graphs and all the information. But I won't have my composite report for you until the screen week. Full report to you on the 8th.
So definitely have a plan in place by the 16th, so that way it goes out the same day you guys post it. Okay.
That's a specific date. It'll get about on 16:30. The other one I'll try to keep. That one will stay. They just don't take credit for it. Easy couple buttons, they push. Video that.
Well, if you get that sooner, definitely let us know. That would be great.
You have to have it. Or you don't want to put it out before you get those 3 or 4 days and say, you know, please do this. Remember, students have the opportunity
So now, so we got the timeline.
Then you look at. A little bit. What we really did, because we went through the scope and search history, we did it. We also actually did the timeline because that was part of the scope of the work we did here. So you introduced it on board. Item 5, on behalf of the board, I was saying that, sorry, you forget that. Thank you. I will just simply say on behalf of the board that because of the setup of our agreement and what we went through, the timeline related to item 5 has already been done. We just combined the two of them, and I think the minutes should show that, you know, it is, reason for that is in my presentation, I always combine them. The attorney split them out, I'm not sure why, on the agenda, but I think it's still just as effective for a screening session, or I mean, a study session as we're now doing, that still works. So we've done item 5, we're on to item 6 then, ma'am.
It looks like that was the policy that you had sent out to us. Yeah.
Item 6 is the entries, the job description, job description and content of search posting. So that covers everything I've got here in my hand. When you're ready? Are you ready?
Are we ready, guys? I think we're ready.
What I have here is a document that is in draft form again, but it represents the application, after the posting of the position. This is not what it looks like online. This is a working document. When you finish this, approve it on Thursday, it'll come back to us, and Katie will then put it in the system, and it will look different. So she has to reformat it and do a number of things. So, we can each copy this and I'll walk through it with you.
Who brought the sweet brunch? I'm not surprised they're delicious. I haven't eaten them yet. But thank you.
Okay. District profile, area 1 district profile. This is in blue language. I put it that way just to you recognize that it is still draft. This is actually from the district. I talked to Linda a week ago. I asked her if she had something. She said, yes, this is what the district come up with at this point. So that's what I put on here. This information provides an overview of the district. It is consistent with what we've seen other districts do. It's informative without being too aggressive. One thing that we will add, I just suggest we add to this, is you have a very good website. It has got a lot of information on it. I do suggest that we make sure that people are drawn to the district website. And on the last page of the document, this is done under additional information. But I want to add at least a piece here that says additional information can be found on the district website. That way we give it to them in 2 different places. Because your district website is very rich and it is good. You've got information on there about your history, you've got information about what you're doing, you've got information. The board passed a resolution in 2019 having to do with equity, I believe it was. That's on there, you can find that. That's just, you've done a great job with that. So I think this representation is good if you're happy with it. Again, Linda put it together, and I think then go onto the website. But do read this, and you need to talk about, is it representative or not, of what you want to say about your district.
So paragraph 2, line 1, I don't believe we're only making up.
I'm going to see if Linda can come over since it's her work.
Am I
Where it says we offer. it, we
Yeah.
offer.
I guess it'd be safe,
Yeah, not offer, look like we didn't check. That's what I think, when, that's like the first thing to say, that our demographic need to be, in my opinion, it needs to be
Actually, like,
first and foremost. Or at least in there.
Demographics on the State Department of Education website, there is a profile of your demographics. I have used that in the past just by taking it and placing it in the document itself and creating, another subheading, district demographics, and put the district's information that's on the state website there. Also, we list the state website on the last page, so they can always go to that to find it. But if you want demographics right in this, I can put them right there.
I think maybe adding what our boundaries are. That shows what our boundaries are.
You can add anything to this you want.
based on Tuesday.
I think that's a way line 4, where it says, given a high percentage of eighth graders promote the meeting. That makes me wonder. And this is because we can like, students have to get based on, like, when you word it, like, the high what happens with the other percentage? I just think I'm just like the wording, you have to change.
I mean, I think I just appreciate another. Yeah. Another.
Okay.
For me, it's district boundaries. I like the breakup on that. Well, yeah. That's absolutely.
Yeah.
But I like that format. Yeah. You can break that.
This is, I don't know where this one is. Oh, it's this. I didn't really see what's the other district.
But we could have like a specific. Profile of the now the districts, and then another section of the meeting, another section of the demographic information. With a link or, yeah. So in the district profile, breaking it up, similar to Madison, so they have it about the district, about what, you know, and then the rest. So, right now we have like the district profile.
So, does the voting board agree with the verbiage that's in the profile? You just let me search it.
So I think both, so we would like a structure differently, and then there's certain verbiage that we would like to modify. So in paragraph 2, line 1, this word. So that is, we need to modify that.
I guess. I feel like it's. I don't like the word highlighting. Because they're so. For me, that would be they are so good at it, but it feels like it's very much. And then to, I don't know, where physically sound school districts, you know, there's not, it's kind of strange, like here's the list of types of schools. Which there's a few.
So perhaps speaking of the district. Like I think paragraph 15 could be there, but are you suggesting putting some paragraph? Maybe it comes later.
With that, I guess it would be helpful if it was already in like the format, like you can see what it's gonna look like. It's not-
I think visually that's good.
It's just to see like where things are gonna be highlighted when someone is speaking about like, what's the first, what's gonna like stand out when, because what we're highlighting is what we're showing that's important to us, right? List of schools.
Yeah, we'll put your.
If you know. Like this is the percent student government, but it's not. So let me. Yeah.
Then we'll go around.
not a threat. Not in front of me. Excellent. It might also- Or third. So it's a bit different. She still has to give us information. He's looking at that. He can get me. Something. They should be back to the probably you never know some walk through something.
I don't need to.
On a schedule for me. Then you can tell us, go around the table and tell her what you think you need to see. It's a little different.
three, like, we go three, I think. I'm breaking up this in the categories. One of my categories is like innovation. Where I think that we could put our thematic for, you know, this kind of necessary, like the narrative, what are the website do that. And we could put things about like our technologies and et cetera. I think we also need a category of equity. So I see in here we have paragraph where it says the free full day can be under equity or free transportation, other items. I think that we could also have the snapshot as well. So I would always advocate for less period or like split, so we could have. So just like our keeping that, you know, how many students we have, things like that.
Working for those two examples. And not submitted.
And then there's one other thing, so in the third paragraph, or it says, well, what about the other? And we have
I'd like to see production.
yeah, I think maybe, so the focus of that sentence means that it's focusing on like promote. But that's, I know that's not what we're trying to say, so perhaps modifying that sentence. And, you know, that's a lot of our kids to be specialty program. That makes sense. I don't think general, yeah. Because I think what you're trying to do here, or whoever wrote it, is trying to do is like things where you can go to high school, but it doesn't read like that.
So I think it, just see where because this was. So you were talking about how what would have been pitched these schools. And so this is really what this is done. So not really what direction or what's needed. So, so this is great feedback. And just for this particular sentence, I think that's a week's. And so it was really more about promoting the types of pathways that our students were in, not so much that they were types of schools, but it was pathways of our students.
That makes sense.
Right, so, so perhaps is, somehow, or we have that category or like academic preparation, but so what are we doing, what are coding academically that want to, like, for instance, I do think there could be an section where we can help, you know, grant to pathways into so that was.
And maybe it's not saying specific. But maybe it's saying, you know, high schools focus on coding or.
Yeah.
I think more generally, I was thinking too, just talking about our partnership that we hope to kind of grow with the XU that does all those things. Because whoever these candidates are, maybe they do know anything, maybe they don't, but maybe if they look into them, they'll see all those grand things. So my focus, in my head would be just make a connection with PSU, that's our feeder district, and that's who we want to grow our partnership with. That is super relevant to what we want this candidate reading into, and knowing that that's in my board.
I wrote the for information about the fiscal responsibility. Paragraph that talks about there was a question for challenges. So, I feel like I would like to know what the, not like anything scary, but you know, some, what the challenges are.
Enrollment, you know, talk about, general.
I think that's on the agenda to talk about, like, what we do want to tell this candidate, what our questions are, like. I mean, that kind of proves, oh,
You might, by including that, you might be a little ahead of yourself, because we're gonna put the e-survey out where the community has a chance to say what they think. And you wanna be in tune with what they have. To answer your question more directly, I've never had a district go to that extent to say, our challenges and what you've been thinking about are this. The other part of that is this. These can't.
Actually, I support Dr. Lee's recommendation. I would rather have it on there. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Lee. I think it's a great idea.
I think so I do think it's important that my team that we are trying to get from.
well, then I'm a little confused about the timeline then of when does the profile go out? And when are we receiving that community feedback?
That's why I mentioned earlier, it would have been nice to start in October,
I get that.
because we could have built it ahead of time and had it ahead of time. When we build a profile for the position, we're gonna have to actually be a little bit more limiting on ourselves, so we. Excuse me.
So you're right, we don't get to include that feedback in the profile, we get to include that in the screen. So that's why I do think it's important that we do include it on the profile, because they're not gonna get a chance to include that in the profile, because we might have this done by March 11th. Right, the profile needs to be done by March 11th.
The profile's gonna have to, we're gonna cover that next. Program has to be really honestly light duty
Okay.
and not too specific, which won't hurt you. Because again, I mentioned you don't want to back yourself into a corner. But because of the time that we
Yeah, okay, I understand.
initiated this,
But
it's
I
just
think
where we're
to
at.
the challenges point is that there's also things that are just out of our control that we need to really identify and say, like, regardless of the community input is that, you know, we are being defunded by the state, like, we have no control over that. So there are some things that we can just, you know, state that these are some challenges that we're facing. How we.
I think Phoenix is, downtown Phoenix is so different right now than it has been in a really long time, and as fast as we are growing, our district is shrinking. And that is a huge challenge, I think, for us to even think about, but that's what I'd rather, again, just have it in a two bullet snapshot of the stuff that we're concerned with right now, like, I think that's generalized. I would say housing maybe, not necessarily the word gentrification, but we are having a housing.
Family housing shortage.
I think we.
So it's not like, I guess, like all of our.
Yeah.
I just don't want. Here, ready, like, put all this stuff in. We just like.
I just have two last notes. There's this section in the where days like the school, your teacher, your kind of they do focus on generation, the families that have attended their district, and you know that it's richer history than that. So that kind of, I think, when I read the district profile and talked about the paragraph, I was expecting to feel the rich history. Our neighborhood schools are really miles and miles and miles to go over their grandkids. Go over their families. That is. So there is an example.
And how many students we have.
Not in there. Innovation skills and partners.
I agree with, what everybody else has, provided input on. I would like to add something, well, address some things in paragraph 2. I don't necessarily am a fan of the word choice. I think here in the state of Arizona, when we see schools of choice, that's often referred to as charter schools. So if we can replace schools of choice. We use it 2 or 3 times in this paragraph. And then I would also just like to add, like Madison has the governing board profile in there too. So it just, explains who all the members are when the term started. And that's all I have.
Wonderful feedback, guys, thank you. I would. Eating too fast. I agree with everything that's already been, mentioned. I do think, Dr. Reed's point, I did like the generations paragraph on Madison that does talk about how families do come back and either work at our district or still send their kids here, no matter where they live. I think is huge, because I do hear that often when I do visit schools, and have participated in some of the altruistic things that go on. It's usually kids coming back for their, whatever their businesses are, they come back to their home schools. So I had a question. I was thinking that we were the Title I district for all of our schools, Title I schools. But 1 and 2. So I feel like that's something to be put in here, that we are all Title I schools. Besides Shaw, I guess. I do think, knowing that we are faced with those populations that deal with poverty regularly, is important, but that's for all of it, for all of us to agree on. So I made that note, but also that Phoenix is growing. We have been growing, but again, that kind of goes with our concern for declining enrollment. So I don't know what could be talked about there, but I would like something said about Phoenix and the downtown communities on immense growth like this, because it is something they're gonna walk right into and have to deal with as far as policies and partnerships and all that. So that leads to my last one, which is maybe in the innovation part, that we somehow have like these partnerships with U of A, we've got them with Banner, we've got them with like bigger stuff down here because downtown is growing so much. So I think that's something as far as a success or an innovation part, just to note on there that it's part of an expectation that we are needing to grow those opportunities for our students, and that we would hope that that candidate does have that kind of networking experience or knowledge, I guess. But everything else that I have on here was already brought up by other board members, as far as demographic boundaries, and then the sectioning off the format of what that looks like. But I was concerned there's not a lot of talk about preschool in here. I'm not an educator, so I don't know maybe why, but that's a success. I think that's a first that we do serve our community in that way. So maybe just note about pre-K and Head Start, or if it's the same thing, I don't know. I think that would be great. This is preschool, but that's what I mean. I saw it in there, but I wasn't sure like how much of it, how much it needs to be. But I do like that we have those partnerships with Head Start, and we're trying to at least
I just mean it was a priority. I've heard in the past from the board meetings that we are trying to grow our preschool thing, so that was the one reason. I wondered if it was still a priority. Since it doesn't really show it's done. That's all I.
It was a good exercise. Well, and if you can send that to me once you get it put together, then I'll include the information in the packet on Thursday. You'll get to see it again on Thursday, and they can either approve it as a form, or they can make further modifications over the Thursday. And then, you know, sometime Friday midday, go through it and make sure that we have exactly what we need, so we can publish this in the first.
Just to clarify, I think it's gonna have to go with the profile, so he's hoping to have some stuff done by Monday, so we could connect those two. pieces to be ready. I know, I think it was the profile he was gonna try to have to us by Monday. So I think that's part of this.
Profile is next, in our conversation. Is, you have to take this document, read what the board is saying here, and then come back. We have the nail and W, exactly position requirements, position profile that is next, and then cover that. And there'll be a lengthy piece that goes, you know, the problem that we're up against is that we're trying to move this fast enough. And because it's all been at the back of the board on Thursday, trying to get it all so that I can have this redone and have Monday, so it's in the back.
Apologize, Miss Jeffrey, I did confuse those.
We're gonna give this our best.
Put it that way.
So I just want to, I kind of confused them both as the same thing, but I think your idea about sending it to us prior to maybe at least have a joint document by Wednesday to approve Thursday, and then have you guys really finalize everything on Friday, that looks a little better. So if you want to send something to us prior to look at,
So we'll take
whenever, yeah,
Take Monday out of the equation.
that way you've got some extra time in there.
We're gonna be more than a couple hours of that to pull this together. So I don't know if we have some more to make the meeting that we're not,
We'll take Monday out of the equation.
that was
Don't worry.
great. Now, in terms of the final credit, are you looking just for the content and then the content is going to go into
You
a
know,
different document? So I don't need to.
you don't need to do
I don't
anything.
formatting, I don't know.
All we need is the write up.
Okay.
So you basically adjusting what you gave me into what it said. Then building plans are here. And, so as long as, you know, technically, as long as they have it by Wednesday, gives them a little time to look at it.
That's where I was
You
trying
push
to,
them,
I
push them,
apologize.
we can't-
I'll
we can't.
push.
No, that's okay.
I'll with the push, we'll definitely. Try to get it. Thank you.
Gotcha.
like, feelings mutual. Thank you.
Unless you want to stay for more.
I'm sure you have other stuff that are happening right now, so if you don't mind, I will need to, excuse
I'll
myself.
see you later. Oh, also,
Those are yours.
The board was talking about demographics. I don't know if you've probably seen it. Given conversation. Yeah. I don't- that has some- Right.
Doesn't always talk about
Thank you for coming in, Ms.
Okay.
Jeffries.
Yeah. That's it. That's good. You did a great job giving us the information we needed. Okay, so when we move on to the next page, there is a district operational information. Martina's going to give me that. You'll see that on Thursday when approve or adjust this bill and then approve it. Those are givens, and nothing really to discuss there, even with all those numbers. Plus, if there's something that I didn't put down here, that it says other financial information, he will add what he feels is important also to give the an idea of what the district is all about when it comes to their operational information, budget, finance, that sort of thing. Now, that was difficult getting through that, but now here comes a more difficult thing, and that is the profile. I wrote a very simple entry comment there, just to kind of start the process. I'm not worried about that at all. It's just giving him, here's what we're doing now, guys. But here's the real key. The real key is what you want. And I guess you should have received this as an see.
Nice meeting.
Thought I brought plenty of copies. Oh, I did. I've got it right here. I just need to make sure that.
Thank you.
Okay. District profile, or not district profile, position profile. What I've given you is examples of position profile. And when I say they're examples, that is truly the case. It doesn't mean you need to use them in any way, shape, or fashion, but it is food for thought. Again, and I think I said this when I first met you here a few weeks ago. You don't want to create such a profile that says we want a person who has a PhD from an accredited university, has 20 years experience as a superintendent in a like-sized district in Arizona, and has published work related to curriculum and instruction, and also, by the way, has an MBA. You're going to have nobody qualified for that. Okay. So, pardon? Yeah, you're painting a picture that you're not going to find. So, two things. First off, you were given out of your policy manual CBA. CBA is a good reference point. The first thing I'm going to suggest is an easy one, and that is that in the profile, I can list that they need to access and look at CBA for greater information related to districts policy in terms of the qualifications needed as a superintendent. That's an easy one, okay? And they should, and you can't change this because it's in district policy. So you can change it later if you change district policy, but we can't change it for this purpose. But the statement that we have to address is the first one on the CBA, that superintendent should have appropriate qualifications as determined by the governing board by action taken in a public meeting, which is what you saw in the PowerPoint. So where do we go from there? This document that you received a week or so ago or earlier this week has examples. The first example is a simple example that districts that use things that are similar to this. what is the benefit? Well, the benefit of this is you have basic requirements. Want them to have a superintendent certificate. You want them to have teaching experience in a public school system. You want them to have experience in the school district administrative leadership position and a master's degree from accredited university. Those are the absolute basics. If a person had those things, that'd be in the A stack that I mentioned to you earlier. That'd be an A stack person if they brought all those things to the table. Maybe that's enough for you, maybe that's not enough for you. But it's an example of what some districts kind of focus on. Sometimes districts put preferred. So they'll say preferred requirements for applicants, and they'll list things like this. What preferred allows you to do is you open the door wide open. And if that works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, you know, obviously you don't want to go that far. I think I mentioned at the first meeting the funnel. Did I mention that? This is kind of like a funnel. Leave the top end as open as you can so you can put as much in it as you can. Because the process of the funnel means that in the end, you're going to have a smaller stream come out the bottom. And that means you collect as many applications as you can. And in review, you look at them and you say, yes, no, 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 yes, no. And it narrows it down so that in the end, the process defines more what you want. That can work, but you still want to have the basics there. Then under preferred attributes, well, we really prefer doctor, we really prefer teaching administrator, we really prefer experience as a district level administrator. That's a very basic synopsis. You can make it all preferred, like I said. You can have things that are absolute. So that's pretty basic. The next one is a little more extravagant. Example 2 has, well, not really more extravagant. It says preferred attributes on this one. And here they just lumped it under the preferred attribute. This is what we want to look for. It's number 3. Then that is a little different in that it's just a group of statements of what the position qualified for, and it's and then example 4 position characteristics. Kind of the same thing, they're only different. Where I was going when I said a little more extravagant, I was thinking of Wilson School District. Those 4 examples are examples that we came up with just to get the juices flowing, for people to think, boards could think about how they wanted to do it. In doing so, if you look at Wilson did their search last year, and they came up with a full, almost 2 pages worth of material.
What page is that?
Wilson, that's page 4 and 5. Page 4 and 5 is what Wilson came up with their alike size, and another smaller district with their alike size, alike district in the sense that they're close by geographically the same. They have a diverse population. They came up with position qualifications that are, you know, a master's degree or higher, doctorate degree preferred, minimum 5 years teaching, minimum 5 years experience education administration, experience public school superintendent, preferred in holding an Arizona school superintendent certificate. And then they listed a whole bunch of essential duties and responsibilities. And then also they listed a variety of things, the knowledge of, the skills of, and the ability to. But they were very aggressive with this. This is what I said it probably too many times already, but I'm just going to mention it again. This is what I was saying earlier. If you had more time, you might want to go to this extent. Maybe you feel you have the time to do it, go that far, but it takes a lot of thought to go that far. And then I also had in here qualifications for an example, the Buckeye Union, who again, they went quite a ways with this, and also J.L. Combs, which they went quite a ways with. J.L. Combs, if you're not familiar, is an elementary school district in Queen Creek, Dover area. They did this about three and a half years ago. They came up with this profile. So those are examples. our effort today is to, kind of like we did with Linda, to tell me what you think you want. And then I will put it on the form for you to look at on Thursday. I'm sure that there will be some additions or changes at that time. But at least you'll have an opportunity to make those, and then we can have it, I can have it meet with Linda and Martine on Friday, and we can put it together and have what you want. So that's a lot. Fathom. If I could ask you some basic questions, we get some of the basics out of the way, it might be easier. Here's the first basic. You want the person to have a superintendent certificate. Arizona.
So what happens if we're?
We have a lot of folks from other states that do have their certificate. We have, and also there's a reciprocal agreement between a lot of states and Arizona that if you have something in Iowa, Arizona will honor it and they will give you a certificate. You can also say preferred, because then that answers that question. We prefer somebody with an Arizona certificate. That means you're not requiring it. Or you can ignore it completely because the law says, does not say that a person has to have a certificate. Most districts don't do that. I know of one superintendent in the state that was hired without a certificate and without any school experience. But it's not common.
Most schools do hire. Which do you have a superintendent? Most schools do hire if you have your superintendent certificate.
He's wondering if most schools hire
Most
candidates.
schools hire with a certificate. Absolutely. Most districts want the person to have a certificate. Here's what it does. Not only does it say that the person got through the educational background you need, but if you have a person that is your superintendent that doesn't have an administrative certificate, hasn't been a teacher, hasn't been a principal, it may be right for you, but your staff kind of wonders if they really understand what the staff's going through to get the job done because they haven't been there.
That was gonna be my question is, what does that look like?
Boards say that we want them to have been there. Usually boards say, we want them to have been a teacher. We want them to have had, superintendent principal experience, and we want them to have had at least district administration experience, maybe not necessarily a super, but assistant super, curriculum instruction, something like that. That's where most districts land. You're not most districts, you're in your own district. That's why I asked first, you want a superintendent certificate. Maybe preferred is appropriate for you.
Can you remind us, I just pulled it up and I can read it off, but you do. If we have a superintendent certificate, in order to get that certificate in Arizona, that needs
It needs to have a master's minimum, and they have to have gone through the superintendent certificate program of one of the universities, so they have the specific classes that the state will accept, so they can have that certificate. It also includes an internship as a superintendent.
and 3 years of teaching experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's. That would cover a lot.
Do you think superintendent preferred, or absolutely?
I love the preferred language just because I would like it to be able to get there from another state, they don't have the Arizona certificate. To have a qualification to get it.
Preferred answers that one question I brought up, and it does open the door a little bit. If you say it's absolute, then you have to stick with it. How many years, let's start with the teacher, how many years of teaching experience? What most districts do is focus on 3 or 5. They focus on 3 because of the certificate. Some districts focus on 5 just to ensure that they have that coordinated effort in their mind about what it takes to be a teacher. And the teachers, the coordination is they look at the superintendent and say, she's done it. We know she's done it. She's been here in our shoes. So what do you think? 3, 5, you can make it more, but I wouldn't suggest going past 5. I'm saying 3 from 3 of you. We're not voting. Okay. I'm going to put 3 years for your review on Thursday. Okay, let's then go to principal. Or building level. It could be building level in this instance, we're talking about principal could be an assistant principal. It could be in a large school, it could be a curriculum and instructional dean of schools, something like that. That would be the building within this building refers to the school. Now, is that an absolute or is that preferred?
I would like to actually have
Absolute.
principal, but.
I'm. So I'm looking at Pendergast, and I'm trying to figure out in my own head what both the educator minds are understanding as admin. So this word says senior administrative experience. Does that include principals and all that stuff?
It would be how they want to define it. There is no definition, absolute definition of that.
So for
So administrative experience and then we just prefer. Real quick, I get nervous that we're gonna narrow down to much with currency of theirs in the country, so tell us that, like, if you feel like we're gonna end up with,
Nothing.
right, or 5, or, you know, like, I don't want to be there. I'd rather have a bigger A, B, and C file than
No, you're right on target. What I'm hearing you say right now is the only thing you said you require at this point, absolutely, is 3 years of teaching experience.
right,
That's
that's
what
what
I'm hearing you have preferred on everything else.
I want them to have a superintendent. I want them to have a superintendent.
Oh, yeah, I was talking about practical experience. Just in the practical experience, we've got preferred superintendent, well, we've got superintendent experience. I heard him say preferred.
Arizona.
Which is fine. Then that's not a problem at all, because then it opens the door wide open, doesn't back into the corner. You prefer it. So you have in your A stack, you have 18 people. 12 of them have their superintendent certificate. So what you're saying is you prefer those 12 up front, but you're open to look at all of them. But the only thing you've absolutely said that is not preferred is the 3 years of teaching experience. But you're talking about principal or building level administrative experience is preferred. You're also talking about district level administrative experience that's preferred. So you haven't backed yourself into any corner at all. You're wide open there, which is pretty easy to deal with. And you know, they're gonna, the person is fine, gonna interpret it differently, which is fine. Because it still gives you an A stack that says, well, I've been the assistant superintendent for curriculum and development. And I guess the person said, well, I'm not picking on anybody who would say this, but it's a whole different level. I've been the director, I have been the director of construction and maintenance in my district. Well, that's a district level position, and that person in some districts, in large districts, might actually sit in an expanded cabinet. But when you look at them, when you're looking at the meeting, you're focused on like, it could be curriculum development as opposed to construction and maintenance. But it opens the door that that person could apply. That's just an example of what you're seeing at the AC. Most of the time, the people apply have that experience in curriculum instruction and in elementary or secondary and something. That's for the bulk of your. Is there any other absolute or absolute preferred type? Now, these are the requirements, not the kind of specific characteristics. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Are there any other things that you think they need? And do you want to put any years when it comes to like the principal and or building level leadership and administrative position? You want to indicate 3 years or something there also, but it's not leave it open. Since you're saying preferred, say 3 years preferred, so if somebody comes in with one that is really good, you can say, well, they only got 1 year, but everything else is bad.
For me, required, I would want them to have doctor's degree.
Required.
I think the analysis, I mean,
They have to go.
Well, the superintendent is the ticket required. Because Dr. Parks takes so long, then if you say it's like required in your, including all the people who are currently in the doctorate program too, those programs take 8 to 10 years. That would be my recommendation. Whatever it is, doing the work, and you know, and the percentage of people with the doctorate degree is small. Like,
Because it's like who get their doctorate degree, that in and of itself, like, shows
We could put that in preferred maybe, but definitely have, something else as far as a required.
You have a master's degree from accredited university, and yes, it is required to get your superintendent certificate, but you're calling the superintendent certificate preferred. So there is enough room in there to say your superintendent certificate preferred, but you definitely have to have a master's degree. That works together. Now, you can also say, doctorate preferred, and again, it gives you a scale the way your A stack and other applicants will. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This guy, I mean, I was saying like this.
I'm more concerned with putting on our preferred or high up their experience with a really diverse population, multicultural.
Yeah. I think
Diverse population.
I was going to
Experience.
put in the recommended qualifications with experience in multicultural district.
I think that's an absolute for me, so
Diversity preferred or diversity absolute?
absolute.
Absolute.
I like absolute. However she worded it.
Experience in a multicultural district.
Experience, yes, I like that. Now we're talking. Yeah, it's an it's an absolute for me, so when I'm going to my stats, preferred for sure, yeah.
I didn't hear preferred with multicultural.
No.
That's an absolute. And what I usually put with that is multicultural, multi-language. If that's okay, I don't have to do it, but that's often what I do it when it comes up. Multicultural, multi-language. There isn't there's gonna be a difference there. You can have a multicultural district that's not multi-language. Language.
Yeah. We still put preferred though. For bilingual.
One bilingual preferred only?
Not only, just
No, I mean,
add.
bilingual is preferred, multicultural is not preferred. It's an absolute.
Yeah.
That gives me, that's two different bullet points in multilingual experience is a bullet if it's preferred. And preferred, but multicultural is a different bullet because it's absolute.
Just put multicultural required, not the legal preferred.
Multicultural I'm hearing is required. Multilanguage I'm hearing is preferred.
Okay.
Like, public school. Have a history of financial success. So, I'm just gonna read off some preferred for you that I wrote.
I'm gonna have to, again, it's too far away from
Right.
where it is.
He's gonna read off some preferred recommendations that he wrote down.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me? No.
Yeah.
I don't think it's on.
Now, are these, let me ask a
Hello.
question. The requirements are basically what we've covered now. Those other things that may come up next, that you can see here, like when your preferred attributes, or is what you're gonna read more like the preferred attributes?
Yeah, I'm gonna read preferred to.
Okay, okay, good.
Qualifications, and then we'll do that.
That's what I have, because that's very different than a private setting.
Oh, okay, good. Good. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
I put committed to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sound fiscal leader, there's some sound fiscal leader, history of financial success. Knowledge of laws that govern public schools. Experience working with federal, state government agencies, elected officials. History of strong community involvement related to supporting schools.
I'm sorry, I missed that last one.
Just history of strong community involvement related to supporting schools.
Okay,
Strong moral compass rooted in justice and equality. Ability to enhance student performance and achievement.
and ability to have,
Ability to enhance student performance and achievement.
certain performance,
Experience working with Title I, free and reduced student populations. So that includes Latinx students. That includes Latinx students, Black students. So history working with student populations. Including Latinx students, Black students, Indigenous students. Saying history work Title I previous students and preferred students, populations, students with low socioeconomic.
what do y'all think that was?
That's our population. I don't know, we're thinking, okay.
Preferred.
Yes, this is preferred.
Preferred attributes. And preferred attributes and experience. What are those? You mentioned it. But that was mentioned under, financial, physical and financial responsibility or knowledge of, that was mentioned, so I've got a pretty common statement I can put in there in regards to that. The equity and inclusion, that's an important piece. Somebody who's experienced and knowledgeable of standards for equity and inclusion, that's an important piece. Laws for public schools, and that's federal and state. That's an important piece. Elect, federal, state, and elected officials, having worked with those folks in the past, and having a working understanding. All of those were good. They all I've used before from different districts to come up with them. What I would like to do is if you could, is that in a form that you can just send it to me? Like to my computer?
Yeah, when you put, I don't know, have something very particular, but something about marketing and communication background, or let's see, like someone who has success with that too.
Add it to your list. Add it to the list that you can email. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about
Well, that's super important. Being able to communicate effectively and connect with everybody.
That with like marketing versus communication with other
you can put oral communications, oral communications. Strong background.
All inclusive makes sense. No, if you're a good communicator, you don't want to pigeonhole it.
Yeah.
You're a good communicator with everybody. You can talk to that kindergarten student, you can talk to the mayor.
Oh, yeah, it's on the last page. On page 9.
That'll be the unit, and then we don't miss anything. You didn't know about high points. Budget finance. One thing I haven't heard, you get a little too heavy, is the academics. Let's mention a little, but I think we probably want a strong academic comment in there about building capacity of staff and which goes capacity of the district, which can help students because that capacity filters out to student learning. I think that's another area you probably want to get a little heavier. So far.
I like number 2 from that one too.
There is something that says,
I like that one. 2 and 11. Okay, they had a population that's struggling with
You know, and that comes down to also how you prove it. Well, you prove it by the questions you ask, and also they can demonstrate it. Earlier, I mentioned the utilization of the survey. You know, with some, you know, action plan. But this could also be turned into a question, given from ahead of time. How have you done this past? Show us the data, show us the information that's gonna, you know, indicate us that you can demonstrate that you've seen growth because of the things you've done. So that's a good follow-up, if that's a point that you're all interested in. Good follow-up for a question or a demonstration that they provide to you during the interview. Another question for you we haven't got to yet. We generally don't ask them to do that. We ask them for an overview, 300 words or less. And then if that sparks your interest, then you ask them to bring that back for part of their presentation or their interview. Which school?
Elementary,
Elementary. As opposed to high school.
yes.
Now with that, I would go back to requirements. I'd go back to the first discussion and say under requirements, put elementary education experience.
I like that.
Or
Couldn't that be tied in with the multicultural district? So must have experience in an elementary multicultural district.
so you can say must have and I think it prefers certain.
No, that's not my point. My point is that you can combine those two.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Thank you for that, because that's been a concern in the past. Just figuring out my own non-educator brain, so thank you.
Yeah, because someone comes into just Union High School experience, is not gonna have a picture of what you look like, and what you are experiencing in elementary district.
Absolutely.
My suggestion would be this. I've already listed a lot of things. If those are emailed to me, I can put those on the list, and then I've given you a lot of material.
Yes.
I think you maybe individually look at that material between now and Thursday, and then add to whatever we've discussed so far. Because there's just so much material to look at here. And if you look at it today, that's great. If you put it down, look at it tomorrow, you might see something else. And then those things can be massaged on Thursday and ready to go then.
So you want us to be able to talk about it on Thursday or send it to you prior?
No, okay, you just stop. I'm gonna get the list soon today
Got it.
of what's being talked about today. But once I have that, I'll implant that in here in our form, and then you'll look at it and you can say yes, but. And then Thursday you'll give direction if you want to follow, and when I meet Linda and Martina on Friday, then I'll get it from them and then I can put it in. That makes sense?
Mhm.
Okay. There's just a lot, and if you read this too, that may spark something on your mind that isn't there, and you say, well, I wonder why this hasn't come, why didn't they ask me to put this in? And maybe we should talk about this in the meeting too.
I'll be
What
available
other
that
thing?
Friday as well
And then
to
that's
join
something
you
that
guys.
somehow get priced.
And
If that's all right, then we can leave that at that point. But so we have two other things we have to accomplish. The application itself, when this goes out, is going to have the opportunity for you to include burning questions. You don't have to include any. But I gave you an example earlier about the district in southern
yes,
Arizona that had a problem with open enrollment. You have a burning question right now that you want to put into the application where they're gonna have to respond to. Usually we say 300 words or less. It's not just like, you like kids, yeah, I like kids. It's something that has some real meat to it, that maybe it's something that you're struggling with, that you want to know how they're gonna address this. So is there something, and you don't have to word the question out, just tell me what the problem that might word the question out. Pardon? The application. That's for the application, it could be an action plan.
but it's just like a section of this application process where we can say, you know, like, how would you increase enrollment or something? Like, that would they include it on the essay part that they request as far as the 300 words on their application site. It's just something we can make it ask for, but we don't necessarily have to.
Yeah.
Like how you were talking about demonstrating data that improves whatever, like a small overview of that could be put into this synopsis. I like that.
This would be out anyone support. I know, like, but I know.
I was
You know,
thinking,
like, some question that will tell you right away. If
Right.
you don't get it, don't wanna get it, I'm gonna get it.
agreed. I was thinking, yeah, enrollment's our biggest thing, but that's our biggest thing because if we don't understand that part, we aren't going anywhere enrollment wise. So I think that's general.
How would you word
Demonstrating a commitment to DIE. Kind of what one of his qualifications, just demonstrating a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I do feel like I'm maybe missing a piece of it, but
it gives you a heads up to evaluate the file. It maybe help you decide who's the most qualified to read the map. The equity piece is important. We take back something that's you have on your website, your declaration of equity. The question could be, or what they could write to, we could simply tell them to access that online. What the district resolution was, and 300 words or less, how do you see your function in support of that resolution? And even if that leaves it wide open, if you have an answer to the question for them, you can see what they focus on, you can see where they go. That's important.
I think that's great. I wrote down in here because you guys talked about the equity plan earlier, and I was trying to figure out how to reword it. But that's perfect because we can say we voted it in 2019. Ooh, shoot it is. Yeah, great idea. I love it.
And you know,
A question I
getting
have,
back to what
a question I have is, you know, what would the applicant do to, bring, maybe like a tighter knit culture in the district, something about like morale, having to do around like staffing and just the district as a whole.
Yeah, that's that's an easy one, and you know, what you do in writing a question like that, and one of you said it earlier, you see what they have to say. Judge it real quick, whether they've got it or don't have it, because you're in the question, you're not answering the question for them. You're saying, here's what we got, now how are you gonna apply it? And you get to see what's in them. That's an excellent question. I can word that, include it in the application. And that'll be perfect.
For me, I think one is success plan, asking the question there, how to use the pathways to success plan to address the challenges listed on the profile. I would say, have one about our pathways to success plan. How they will use the pathways to success plan to address one or all the challenges listed we have in the profile.
Agree on? Yeah.
Also, I have probably documented from
I know we've been talking about it for a long time.
no, but we haven't really.
I think
Our goals are.
the strategic plan, but I don't think pathways publish.
What you can do is something like that, to really discover what they think is, because if you have a plan and they read it, they know how to answer the question. But if you ask them a question about student success and what are the primary pathways in to student success for a K-8 system, then they have to make that up themselves. You're not answering the question by giving them your plan. That's easy. Give me your plan, I can write something to it that is supported. So make me write my own plan and tell you what I'm thinking is important is a whole different question. So would you like a second question related then to pathways to success? It's also something you can bring back in an interview and have them present an action plan.
Maybe for the second interview?
Also an excellent question for that.
Yeah, it's just a priority.
The other thing is with your equity question, with the cultural component, if you're only gonna go with the one question, I could open that up to 400 or 500 words or less and build into it. That they understand they're gonna need to put a little more effort into that thought and have more comprehensive answer, to give you more to look at in terms of what is equity, how is it built, how do policies, how does the culture, how does the day-to-day activities of the school aid to or detract from equity and inclusion, and push that envelope even further for them. I can come up with something that makes them drill it down even further. You okay with that?
Space, but I think we'll know.
Right after that.
how you can address the loss of enrollment. That's an easy one.
There's one of this thing that I was saying. Yeah, families with the overall,
Let's publish.
It's going to be a problem issue that we're gonna have. to focus on.
Well, I think maybe the question is, based off our strategic plan, what is the strategy for each of the issues or initiatives?
It could be that.
Strategy for your strategic plan.
Yeah, we could just one.
So maybe is the question about the declining enrollment? Because that's a mystery. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
I think we can choose one.
if you keep it real simple to just review and 300 words, provide the governing board with strategies you would utilize to address the strategic plan. Again, it means it's so wide open, you get to see what they're thinking. And you have not answered, you get too far, into it, you begin to answer the question. Leave it as analysis of the strategic plan and how they're going to accomplish it. And you'll have a stronger opportunity to see who really nailed that question and who didn't. Well, you got 3 questions now.
What is the strategy would you like to test that?
Online, right?
Section.
Are we good with that at this point then, you think?
What strategy would corporations look for, what are the actions?
Teams, and that's online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the strategic plan. So we're gonna issue this is not-
It's called the 2025 strategic plan.
They don't need their open enrollment.
I also think that which one to choose, say which one to pay some for, or is it even the other?
You have a speaker, the mic in front of you.
Yeah, I know you do.
One is
Yeah.
citizens,
Action, being what.
two, equity, three is direction and policy, four is organization.
So,
These are,
yeah,
yeah,
another one. Wait. Declining enrollment, not, okay, just clarifying, because I'm writing and I was like, shoot, did I miss something? Yeah. Absolutely. Resolution. And those are voted on and placed.
Yeah, that's fine. The equity resolution, but I would ask them to review it and to comment on how they're going to ensure that their leadership enhances and achieves the intent of the resolution. Okay, you got three really good questions. It'll be interesting to see how well they are able to present their material to you, their thoughts to you. And from my point of view, it's really interesting to see the reaction reports after what they write.
A question about regarding just, the state's funding. You know, we're constantly, being threatened by our state and some, if we get an applicant that is, you know, not from the state, they're not gonna be aware of just the constant attacks that we're getting, so I kind of want to pose a question as to, you know, where are you? Happening on our state legislator? Or something around.
It's a good topic. I don't think, because everybody has it, it's not an individual topic for you. But it is a question that I think should be answered. Maybe one of the things that I should add to the preferred attributes, and maybe start in, call it back for the note, is you mentioned somewhat of a background in finance, but it's also an excellent interview question to have somebody discuss where we're at currently in Arizona and what they see the difficulties are going to be in the next 2, 3, 5 years. That also goes into your declining enrollment, because if they're going to rate to declining enrollment, they need to mention what the ramifications of declining enrollment are. And one of the ramifications are you lose money. And how do you maintain programs and how do you maintain facilities when you're losing money? Because you're losing enrollment. And then what happens when you lose enrollment to the point where you have to close a school? Have you ever tried that one? That's a lot of fun. You tell a community they have to close the school because we don't have enough kids and they have to save money because they need to understand how all that works. And they need questions from everybody.
For the resolution, for the equity resolution, what equity, what resolution are we talking about? The equity plan or resolution? Can you say what? Yeah. So,
But things like that can be part of the interview process too, where you hand them that and say they have to come back with, we're gonna find them to come back with a presentation. To a number of them. Resolution.
And confirmation of location. Resolution.
Or just include the speed, you know, you can make it as a resolution and actually plan and address both. The one is supporting the other.
Because again, how are you going to find out? Very quickly and very. If figure that this is how we feel.
I mean, that, yeah, that is big. So, yeah,
I chose to just writing that up, letting them say what.
I'll write it all up and they'll go for it and see what they can.
Agree.
What should we ask them to again?
if they read it, there is,
It goes back in part to one of the preferred requirements, and that is, diversity. Having experience in a diverse population, school with a diverse population. We have one more thing to do. Okay? Everybody ready? Yeah, please. You're gonna miss salary.
Give me your ballpark.
Take
We're
this
supposed to
thing.
end at 1 anyhow, so
Okay.
might take. How much longer do you think we might be?
3 to 5 minutes, depending on how fast you are.
Nice.
How's that?
Got it.
We do a salary survey every year. Okay? Salary survey goes out to all the school districts and we get a response. We don't have 100% response from the district school. We get a good representative response. We break it down into size of school district, elementary, union, unified. We break it down by county. Okay. For your size district, it's looking at the whole state and whole the range was from about 140 to $160,000. Now, You're in a range of 5,000 students to about 7,500 students. That's how it breaks down. The range right below you is actually just about as high as you are. In fact, the highest reported was 170,000. My recommendation, based on all the things that we collect in terms of this information over time, is to set a salary range of 140 to 160,000. Now, your current superintendent is higher than that, but he's been here a lot of years, and he's earned more. Now you're talking about where you're going to start the person. You start the person based upon their past experience and where they excel in terms of people you have interviewed. So maybe this person has got a lot of experience, and you're going to start at the top. Or toward the 160 range. Now that's plus benefits, that's plus performance pay. So those things are added on. Now you are in a competitive realm. So if you want to add to the top, you certainly can. Like I said, the group below you, the 2,500 student districts to 5,000 has a top end of 170. So they're actually excelling or exceeding where you're at as a district to the south. But the other part is what can you afford? See, I won't say that.
Thank you very much.
That'll give you the attention, especially 160. Ranges right now, the lowest I have that reported was about 85,000. That's a small district under 300 students. There's a couple of districts out there that are in the 20, 30, 40 range district of students. And they can be less than 85, but those are anomalies. There are districts out there that well, for elementary districts right now, I will tell you that the maximum that was reported is a district between 7,500 and 10,000, and their top is 190. The lowest I see for an elementary district in terms of a max is 100, and that's 300 students. When I go to 5,000 to 7,500 students, that 140 is a good base average. It's what the base average is for that size. But then you have to look at minimums, maximums, and those sorts of things. So that's why I say 140 bottom end supports what the stats tell us, the data tells us. 160 approaches where you're at now, but doesn't provide for anything more than that. And you have to take into consideration this person's been in place for a long time and earned more over time. But it is competitive though. And
You want to start? 40 and the height? 160.
I'm good with those. 140 to 160 is good for us.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yep.
But
You can
unless
afford
there's-
it. You can afford it. If you have a change of mind, you can change this on Thursday. I'm going to leave this report right here because it also has in it information related to benefits, who gets what, car allowances, housing allowances, phone allowances, insurance. It's all in there. So you've got access to it online through our website, and you've got a hard copy.
We got it. I think maybe ASBA sent it to us. I think.
We sent you Thank you. Yeah,
Email I sent with the.
We have some check here. He's wondering if you got his email.
oh, I'm not logged on right now. You have a
Yeah.
password that you didn't.
I'm not too sure about our Wi-Fi. Yeah,
Just,
I'm sure.
I'll call you later.
I'm more concerned with making sure we got the right agenda items that we want to maybe add. So are we doing that today?
No, I'll do that.
Monday.
Send it over.
Okay, Monday. That way, just make sure we can
Yeah.
get them where
I'll-
it's to
I'll
go
send
and
it.
published.
Basically, what it's gonna do is focus on, the advertising document. Because all the information that we came up with in the advertising document. And,
There was 4 things. So it says we'll talk about the search agreement, the stakeholder involvement, the advertising document, and the approving questions.
yeah,
So
that's all in the, it's all in the agenda. Like I said, we've written this, but I'll break it out so you.
perfect. That's how you did the first go around. So I just wasn't too sure if we could pull them from that and then send those on.
One at a time, so you're
Okay.
addressing. Um,
Right.
and then you're addressing something else, and you're addressing something else.
Got it.
That way it's easier to focus.
And then we'll have a document that's uploaded with that stuff so we can,
So you're gonna have this document in the agreement that's up.
perfect. That way, as presented, yada, yada, yada. Okay, that
But
sounds
again,
good.
the same, you're probably not gonna get this.
Right, not exactly.
We'll have a
We're
lot of
gonna,
time to review, but
right.
still,
We'll make sure it gets uploaded and in there. So I appreciate it. Do we have to? We can't, I don't think we have to motion to adjourn. Do we have to do a motion, you think? I don't think so.
Then you call it to order,
Yeah, study session.
and then if you call it to order, you close it.
Um,
I don't know if it's on your agenda. Again, I didn't write.
oh yeah,
it.
that's a good
Is it
point.
on your agenda?
I know we got all our stuff done. Yeah, adjournment, sweet.
Here you go.
So yeah, guys, can I have a motion to adjourn our study session today at 1:15? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carrillo. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion passes and we will adjourn at 1:15. Thank you very much, Mr. Steve. Thank you, everybody, for being here.